Skyrim has been out for over a decade, and people are still finding things buried inside it that Bethesda never once pointed to, never announced. And this video is going to walk you through 573 of them. Before I move forward, I'm counting on you to support my channel by clicking that tiny subscribe button so that we can spread these amazing videos to folks like you around the world. Thank you. I put this video together because I've spent an embarrassing amount of time inside Skyrim. Not just playing it, but reading it. The books, the dialogue, the placement of objects, the way certain NPCs walk in certain directions at certain times of day. And what I kept noticing was that the game is absolutely loaded with things that don't announce themselves. Things you walk past 100 times before something finally clicks. So I decided to collect them. All of them I could find. Some of these are well known to dedicated players. Some are genuinely obscure. When I was assembling this, I made a deliberate choice to lead with the ones that reward close attention rather than quick reactions. The kind of detail that suggests Bethesda's developers were leaving notes for people who were really paying attention. Whether that's true is open to interpretation, but I think it's worth considering. Let's get into it. 1. In Helgen, during the opening execution scene, if you look carefully at the soldiers, one of them is picking his nose when the camera pans past. It's blink and you miss it, and it was almost certainly placed there by a developer who thought nobody would ever pause on it. 2. The Headless Horseman is a ghostly rider who appears only at night, galloping silently across the roads of Skyrim. He never speaks, never stops, and never acknowledges the player. He always rides toward Hamvir's Rest, a small, unmarked gravesite. One possible reading is that he's returning home every single night, endlessly. 3. If you follow the Headless Horseman all the way to Hamvir's Rest and wait there, nothing happens. He simply disappears. The game offers no explanation. 4. In Whiterun, a beggar named Brenuin can sometimes be heard humming to himself. The tune is a slower, sadder version of the main Skyrim theme. It's subtle enough that most players assume it's ambient noise. 5. The book, Kolb and the Dragon, inside the game is an interactive choose-your-own-adventure story. If you make the correct choices, Kolb defeats the dragon and goes home. If you make the wrong ones, the book simply ends mid-sentence. 6. There is a copy of The Lusty Argonian Maid in almost every inn in Skyrim. It was placed there as a joke, but the number of locations it appears in suggests the developers either really committed to the bit or someone had a very specific checklist. In Riften, if you walk into the Blackbriar Meadery and listen long enough, the workers will occasionally complain about Maven Blackbriar in hushed voices. If Maven is nearby when they say this, they stopped mid-sentence. The game tracks that proximity. 8. There is a cave called Moss Mother Cavern. Inside, a hunter named Valdra is wounded and asks for help. After you help him, he says, "Thank you. Mara was watching over me today." Mara is the goddess of love and compassion. The line is easy to miss, but points toward a faith system that most players never engage with. 9. The inn in Riverwood is called the Sleeping Giant Inn. The name is a reference to the Throat of the World, the great mountain visible from nearly everywhere in Skyrim. It's visible from Riverwood. Whether the name is intentional is unclear, but it fits. 10. In Markarth, there is a temple to Dibella, the goddess of beauty. Inside, a group of priestesses performs a ritual they call the Exquisite Collection. If you barge in, without permission, they get angry. If you do the associated quest first, they invite you to witness it. The ritual itself is never described. The game treats it as sacred without explaining what it is. Cicero, the jester of the Dark Brotherhood, keeps a journal. The earlier entries in his journal describe a completely sane man slowly losing his grip on reality after years of maintaining a coffin. The later entries are disturbing. The progression is gradual enough that if you read the journal in order, you feel the shift happening in real time. 12. That coffin Cicero maintains belongs to the Night Mother, the spiritual leader of the Dark Brotherhood. She is dead, She has been dead for a long time. Cicero's job is to keep her preserved and to transport her from city to city. He has been doing this for decades, alone. 13. The Night Mother speaks to the listener, the one person in the brotherhood she has chosen. When she speaks to you for the first time, Cicero reacts with joy. He has been waiting for this moment for years. He never expected to live to see it. 14. In the ruins of Helgen, after the dragon attack, you can find the body of a dog. The dog has no name. It belongs to nobody. It was just there. There is a friendly dog named Miko who lives alone in a shack. His owner has died of illness. Miko sits beside the bed where the body is, waiting. He will follow you if you allow him to become your companion. He asks for nothing. Barbas is a dog who is actually a Daedric prince's servant, transformed as punishment. He talks. He is sarcastic. He is, according to him, several thousand years old. He refers to his master Clavicus Vile with the exhausted affection of someone who has worked for a difficult boss for millennia. 17. Clavicus Vile's shrine quest ends with a choice. Kill Barbas to give Vile his full power back, or let Barbas live and take a lesser reward. If you let Barbas live, Vile says something like, "Fine, I suppose I did miss the mangy thing." That line is the closest a Daedric prince gets to admitting he cares about something. 18. In Solitude, there is a public execution early in the game. A man named Rogvir is killed for opening the gates of Solitude to the man who killed the High King. If you attend the execution, a woman in the crowd shouts that he's a traitor. A child asks what is happening. Nobody answers the child. 19. Rogvir's last words are about Talos. He says that Talos will greet him in Sovngarde. Whether Talos is a valid god or a man falsely deified is one of the central theological arguments of the Elder Scrolls universe. And Rogvir dies believing in him anyway. 20. There is an entire quest line built around the Thieves' Guild that spans multiple cities and involves a conspiracy of significant scale. At the center of it is a man named Mercer Frey, who has been stealing from the guild for years. None of the other guild members noticed. This is either a comment on institutional blindness or a note from the developers that people in charge of watching for thieves are often the worst at noticing them. 21. The Nightingales are a group within the Thieves' Guild who serve Nocturnal, a Daedric prince of darkness and luck. Their oath binds them to serve her in death as well as life. When you take the oath, the game presents it as an honor. It is also, technically, a contract for your soul. 22. Nocturnal's realm in Oblivion is called Evergloam. It is described in books as a place of perpetual twilight. Souls who serve her spend eternity wandering it, as shades. The game never tells you this when you're taking the oath. It's in the books. 23. In Riften's Thieves' Guild headquarters, there is a memorial wall with names etched into it. These are guild members who died in service. Some of them have notes beside the names. One note reads, "Fell protecting a new recruit." Another reads, "Died as he lived, not caught until it was too late." The humour and the sadness coexist. Maven Blackbriar, the most powerful person in Riften, is openly corrupt. The guards know it, the Jarl knows it. Everyone in the city knows it, and yet nothing happens to her. This is not an oversight. It is the point. 25. If the Stormcloaks win the civil war, Maven Blackbriar becomes the new Jarl of Riften. If the Imperials win, she is appointed as the Imperial Ambassador. Either way, she wins. 26. There is a book called A Game at Dinner, which describes a Dunmer prince inviting several political rivals to a dinner and poisoning them one by one while making conversation. The narrative voice of the book is calm and pleasant throughout. It reads like a recipe for power. 27. In Windhelm there is a murderer called the Butcher, operating in the Grey Quarter, the part of the city where Dunmer refugees live. The guards are slow to investigate because the victims are Dunmer. The quest makes this explicit. The game does not present this as acceptable, but it also doesn't pretend it doesn't happen. 28. The Butcher turns out to be a scholar named Calixto, who became obsessed with necromancy. After his sister died, he carries a keepsake of hers and refers to her in his notes with a tenderness that makes the horror more uncomfortable. There is a woman in Windhelm named Suvarus Atheron, who works for a shipping company and is kept under surveillance by a man named Rolf the Strong, who suspects her of being a Stormcloak spy. She is not a spy. Rolf is simply paranoid. But if you tell her she's being watched, she gives you a small reward and looks genuinely relieved. She has been living under that suspicion for a while. 30. Ulfric Stormcloak can shout. He used the Thuum to shove Torig, the High King, away from him before killing him with a sword. The way this is described in the game suggests the shout didn't kill Torig. The sword did. Ulfric's enemies say the shout killed him. His supporters say that's a lie. The game doesn't resolve it. 31. Ulfric learned the Thuum from the Greybeards on the Throat of the World. He was a student there for years. Then the Great War happened, and he left to fight the Thalmor. Then he was captured by the Thalmor and interrogated. He doesn't talk about this period of his life. If you find the Thalmor's files on him, they do. 32. The Thalmor have a dossier on Ulfric that describes him as an asset, not a prisoner of war, not a political enemy. An asset. The implications are significant, and the game leaves you to sit with them. The Thalmor also have dossiers on Delphine and Esbern, the last surviving blades. These files are written in a tone that is clinical and professional. They describe people the Thalmor view as minor nuisances, not serious threats. From the Thalmor's perspective, they are probably right. 34. The Blades were once the greatest order of dragon hunters in history. By the time of Skyrim, there are two of them left. One is hiding as an innkeeper. The other is hiding in a sewer. Both have been in hiding for decades. Both are still waiting for a signal that never came. 35. Esbern, when you first meet him, has surrounded himself with books and notes. He has been studying the return of Alduin for years, working it out from prophecy and historical texts. He was right about everything. Nobody listened to him. He doesn't say this bitterly. He just states it. 36. The Eye of Magnus is an ancient artifact found beneath the College of Winterhold. Nobody knows what it does. Nobody knows why it was buried there. The mages of the college were studying it. When things go wrong, it becomes clear that studying it was a mistake. The game suggests, through the mouths of its characters, that some things are safer not understood. Ancano, the Thalmor observer at the College of Winterhold, is presented as a villain, but one possible reading of his behaviour is that he genuinely believed the eye was too dangerous to leave in the hands of the college. He wasn't wrong that it was dangerous. He was wrong about what to do with that information. 38. Savos Aran, the Archmage of the college, has a secret. There is a sealed tomb nearby that he sealed himself many decades ago. Inside are his old colleagues, still alive, still casting a spell, keeping something trapped. He trapped them there to save himself. He has been carrying that knowledge since. 39. The thing Savos Aran's colleagues are keeping trapped is a dragon priest named Maroke, who wears a mask that amplifies magical power. The colleagues are skeletal. They have been casting the same spell for decades. They are aware when you enter. One of them says something to the effect of being glad someone finally came. Then they die. 40. Dragon priests in Skyrim were the servants of dragons in the ancient world. When the dragons ruled, the priests were the dragons' intermediaries, governing human civilization in their masters' names. When the dragons fell, the priests were entombed with their masks, kept alive through magical stasis, waiting for the return of their gods. There are 8 dragon priest masks in the game. 8 of them can be collected and placed on pedestals in a hidden location, called Labyrinthian. When all 8 are placed, a 9th mask appears. The 9th mask belongs to Conoric, which in the dragon language means warlord. It is the most powerful of all of them, and the game places it there as a reward for the kind of thoroughness that most players never demonstrate. 42. The dragon language, called Dovazul, is a fully constructed language with consistent grammar and a working alphabet. Bethesda commissioned linguist Erin Working to develop it for the game. It appears throughout the world on word walls. on architecture, and on ancient artifacts, and it is internally consistent. 43. The word walls scattered across Skyrim each contain one word of a shout. Each word is etched in Devazel. A spectral dragon appears when you absorb the knowledge from one. These dragons are not aggressive. They simply rise, acknowledge the moment, and fade. One possible reading is that they're the memory of the dragon who once knew that word, surfacing briefly at the moment of transfer. 44. Fus Ro Da, the unrelenting force shout, translates roughly to force balance push. The three words represent a progression. Force alone is weak. Force, with balance, is stronger. Force, balance, and push together are what sends enemies flying. The structure of the shout encodes the philosophy behind it. There is a book in Skyrim called The Firmament, which is a study of the stars in the Elder Scrolls universe. It describes constellations and their associated blessings. The constellations in this book correspond to the standing stones scattered across Skyrim, which grant the same blessings the book describes. The game and its lore are in agreement. 46. The Steed Stone, one of the standing stones, grants the ability to carry more weight and move faster while wearing armor. The book describes the steed as a constellation associated with travel and swiftness. The two sources of information were written independently, decades apart. They match. 47. The Guardian Stones, the warrior, the mage, and the thief, are the first standing stones most players encounter. They are grouped together at the start of the game because they represent the three archetypes from which all other character builds derive. This is mechanical design, encoded as in-world mythology. 48. In Riverwood, shortly after the start of the game, two characters named Faendal and Sven are competing for the affection of a woman named Camilla. Both will try to recruit you to sabotage the other. If you help one, the other becomes hostile. If you help neither, the situation never resolves. Camilla is never asked what she wants. 49. If you side with Faendal and he becomes your follower, he will eventually say, unprompted, that he hopes things work out with Camilla. He sounds uncertain. He seems aware that he may have won a competition without winning anything that mattered. 50. Camilla, for her part, has a brother named Lucan, who is considerably more focused on a stolen ornament than on his sister's romantic life. The ornament is a golden claw. There is a whole dungeon you can clear to get it back. When you return it, Lucan thanks you and immediately puts it back in the display case. He seems entirely satisfied. 51. The golden claw from Bleak Falls Barrow has a combination on its palm. The combination is the correct code for the door puzzle in the barrow. Players who examine the claw before puzzling over the door solve it immediately. Players who miss this detail spend a long time trying combinations. 52. Bleak Falls Barrow is the first major dungeon most players explore. It contains a Draugr who is capable of shouting, the first time players encounter a shout used against them. The Draugr shouts Fuss, the first word of unrelenting force, which knocks the player back. It's a tutorial disguised as a monster encounter. 53. The Draugr in Skyrim are ancient Nord warriors preserved through burial magic. They are animated by the lingering power of the dragon priests, and in some cases, by dragons themselves. The most powerful ones wear armor that has not been worn by a living person for thousands of years. That armor still functions. 54. Alduin, the main antagonist, is a dragon who exists to devour the world at the end of time. This is his purpose. This is what he is. The game frames this as evil, and it is, but it also points toward the idea that Alduin is not deviating from his nature. He simply arrived too early before the world was ready to end. 55. Parthurnax, the leader of the Greybeards, is also Alduin's older brother. In the ancient war between dragons and men, Parthurnax fought on the side of the dragons. He eventually switched sides and taught humans the Thuum, which turned the tide of the war. He has spent thousands of years meditating on a mountain, attempting to master his violent nature. He is, by any reasonable measure, the most genuinely thoughtful character in the game. 56. Delphine and the reconstituted blades will demand that you kill Parthenax if you want them as allies. They cite his past crimes as justification. Parthenax, when you tell him this, does not deny anything they say. He simply asks whether a being who has spent millennia working to overcome its nature deserves no credit for that effort. The game lets you make the decision. It does not tell you which choice is right. If you kill Parthenax, the Greybeards will never speak to you again. The game gives no further consequence, no ceremony, no acknowledgement. The mountain simply becomes quieter. 58. The Greybeards have a leader above Parthenax. Technically, his name is Jurgen Windkohler, and he has been dead for thousands of years. His tomb is in Oostengrav. The Greybeards consider him the founder of their order. He never appears in the game. He is mentioned in 3 books. 59. Jurgen Windkohler was originally a great warrior who used the Thuum in battle. After a defeat that he believed was caused by the misuse of the voice, he spent 39 years in silent meditation and came out of it with a new philosophy. The voice should be used only in worship of the sky, never in war. His followers built a monastery on the highest peak in the world to practice this. The irony of that philosophy being abandoned the moment it becomes inconvenient, which is what the Greybeards do when they train you, is left unaddressed. 60. There is a shout called Become Ethereal, which makes you temporarily incorporeal. While ethereal, you cannot be damaged, but you also cannot damage others. It is a shout built entirely for running away or for crossing dangerous terrain safely. It was found by monks. It fits. 61. The throat of the world at its summit has engravings that tell the history of the ancient war between men and dragons. If you can read Dovazul, you can read the wall. If you cannot, Parthenax translates. Either way, the summit has been a library of ancient history the entire time, and most players never read it. 62. At the summit of the throat of the world, the ambient wind never stops. It is the loudest location in the game. Standing there in silence, relative silence, while looking at the whole of Skyrim spread below, is one of those moments the game creates without ever drawing attention to it. 63. There is a location called Lost Valley Redoubt, where a group of Forsworn live. The Forsworn are the original inhabitants of the Reach, the western hold of Skyrim, who were displaced by Nord settlers centuries ago. They are considered terrorists by the Nords. Their perspective, available through their own books and dialogues, suggests they see themselves as freedom fighters. Both things are true simultaneously. 64. Madanak, the king in rags, leads the Forsworn from a prison cell in Markarth. He has been imprisoned for years. If you free him, he is grateful, but he also immediately returns to leading an insurgency. He is not reformed. He was never repentant. He simply waited for an opportunity. 65. The Reach itself has a history that the game encodes in layers. The Forsworn use the old Reachman religion, which predates the Nord conquest. The Hagravans are women who gave up their humanity to become something more powerful. The transformation is voluntary. The books describe it as a choice. 66. Hagravens can craft Briar Heart warriors by removing a man's heart and replacing it with a Briar Heart. The man becomes supernaturally strong. He is also, technically, dead. The Forsworn consider this an honor. The Nords consider it an abomination. The game presents both views without endorsing either. In Markarth, there is a city built entirely inside a Dwemer ruin. The Dwemer, a race of technologically advanced elves, disappeared in an event called the Numidium Incident thousands of years ago. Every single Dwemer vanished simultaneously. Nobody knows where they went. Their cities remain. Their machines still work. Their books are still on the shelves. They just left. 68. The Dwemer disappearance is one of the great unsolved mysteries of Elder Scrolls lore. Various theories are scattered through the in-game books. Some suggest they used a powerful artifact to transform themselves. Some suggest they were destroyed. The books disagree with each other. The game does not resolve it. This is intentional. 69. Dwemer automatons are still functional in Dwemer ruins thousands of years after their creators vanished. Some of them are aggressive. Some simply walk their patrol routes endlessly. They have been walking the same routes for millennia, guarding a civilization that no longer exists. 70. There is a quest involving a Dwemer scholar named Calselmo, who has spent his life studying the Dwemer language. He has a nephew named Icantar who assists him and is considerably more focused on the practical dangers of their research. Calselmo barely notices Icantar's existence. The nephew seems accustomed to this. Calselmo has a stone tablet with a translation key for the Dwemer language. It is the only known key in the world. He is possessive of it. The quest asks you to copy it, whether you do so through charm, stealth, or bribery. The fact that the only translation key for a dead language is in the hands of one obsessive scholar is treated as normal. 72. The Dwemer language has its own grammar and vocabulary and has been partially reconstructed by fans using the in-game texts. Bethesda has never released a full grammar guide. The fan reconstructions point toward an internally consistent system, which suggests Bethesda built more of the language than they ever showed. 73. In Blackreach, a massive underground Dwemer city, there are glowing mushrooms that illuminate the cavern. There are also giant albino Falmer, former snow elves who were forced underground centuries ago and devolved over generations due to the mushrooms the Dwemer fed them, which were toxic and caused blindness. The Falmer are hostile. They have been hostile since before anyone alive can remember. The cause of that hostility is a story that takes place thousands of years before the game. 74. The Snow Elves, also called the Falmer in their original form, were an advanced civilization wiped out by the ancient Nords. The survivors fled underground and sought help from the Dwemer. The Dwemer agreed to shelter them in exchange for servitude and the consumption of the toxic mushrooms, which made them blind and easy to control. This is described in fragments across several books. The full picture only becomes visible if you read all of them. 75. Knight Paladin Jelibor is a snow elf who survived the devolution. He has been guarding a way shrine near Darkfall Cave for thousands of years, waiting for a pilgrim who never came. He is the last of his kind in any recognizable form. He knows this. He has known it for a long time. 76. Jelibor's brother Vertha was supposed to be the other guardian. Vertha was infected with vampirism, and in his bitterness cursed the way shrine system and set up an elaborate trap. Jelibor was not aware of this. He has been protecting a system his brother corrupted, faithfully, for millennia. When you complete the Dawnguard questline, you can speak to Jelibor after the resolution. He asks what will happen to him now that his purpose is fulfilled. The question hangs in the air. He has defined his entire existence by this duty. Without it, he doesn't know what he is. 78. The Dawnguard questline involves vampires and a prophecy that would blot out the sun permanently. The leader of the vampires, Harkon, wants this because he is a vampire and believes the sun's absence would allow vampires to rule. He frames it as liberation. His own daughter, Serana, disagrees with him. Their conflict is as much about a father and daughter as it is about the prophecy. 79. Serana was put to sleep in a coffin by her mother centuries ago to keep her safe from her father. Her mother Valerica made a series of choices to protect Serana, all of which involve removing Serana's ability to choose for herself. The game presents this as complicated rather than simply heroic. 80. Valerica hid in the Soul Cairn, a realm in oblivion where trapped souls wander endlessly, to protect a scroll for centuries. She is still there when you find her. She seems, after that long, somewhat past the point of adjusting to her situation. The Soul Cairn is filled with souls who were trapped there by necromancers who used black soul gems. Every soul in the Soul Cairn was a human being at some point. They wander, faded and confused. Occasionally they speak. What they say is fragmentary and sad. 82. Black soul gems can trap the souls of sentient beings. Humans, elves, mer. Ordinary soul gems can only trap animal souls. The distinction is built into the game as a moral gradient. Using black soul gems is presented as more transgressive than using white ones. The game never explicitly labels it as evil, it just makes the player do more work to access it. 83. Soul gems in Skyrim encode the entire economy of enchanting. Every enchanted item runs on a trapped soul, the armor the player wears, the sword they use, all of it, potentially, powered by something that was alive. The game does not make this central. It is simply there, in the mechanics if you think about it. 84. There is an Atronach forge beneath the College of Winterhold. It uses soul gems, among other components, to create Daedric equipment. The formula for the forge is written in a book nearby. If you follow the formulas exactly, the forge produces items that should not exist in the mortal world. The book that contains the formulas seems older than the college itself. 85. The College of Winterhold is the only institution of magical learning in Skyrim. The Thalmor tolerate it because they need trained mages. The Nords largely distrust it because magic is associated with elves in the south. The citizens of Winterhold distrust it because they believe the college caused the Great Collapse, the event that destroyed most of their city a century ago. The college's official position is that they had nothing to do with it. Whether they are telling the truth is not confirmed. 86. The Great Collapse left Winterhold as a ruin on a cliff edge, with most of the city having fallen into the sea. The college itself was untouched. This is suspicious. The game acknowledges that it is suspicious. It does not confirm that the college caused it. 87. Archmage Aaron, as noted earlier, has a dark secret, but the college also has an institutional secret. They knew that the Eye of Magnus was dangerous and chose to keep studying it anyway. The questline is, among other things, about the cost of prioritizing knowledge over caution. 88. There is a mage at the college named Enthir who will buy stolen goods without asking questions. He is not affiliated with the Thieves' Guild. He is simply an academic who has a sideline. His matter-of-fact approach to fencing stolen items in the middle of a magical university is presented with complete normalness. 89. In Winterhold, a single innkeeper named Dagur runs the Frozen Hearth. He has a wife named Harren and a daughter. The inn is almost always empty, because the city is almost always empty. Dagur maintains his inn with the same professionalism he would presumably apply if the city were full. He appears entirely unbothered. 90. There is a character in Dawnstar named Erandur, who is a priest of Mara, trying to stop a recurring nightmare that has been plaguing the city's inhabitants for weeks. He has a past he is ashamed of. The quest involves going into a dark place, literally and figuratively, to confront that past. At the end, you can either trust him or kill him, on the instruction of a Daedric prince. The Daedric prince in question is Vermina, who governs nightmares. She is, predictably, not a reliable narrator. 91. Vermina's artifact, the Skull of Corruption, is a staff that uses the memories of sleeping victims against them. It is powered by dream residue, which is described as something that accumulates in sleeping minds. The description sounds like a metaphor. In the Elder Scrolls universe, it is a literal material that can be harvested. Dreams in the Elder Scrolls universe are real in ways that dreams in the real world are not. Several quests involve entering dreams, interpreting them, or being affected by them. The boundary between dreaming and perceiving is thinner in the fiction than in reality. This is stated in books and implied by mechanics. 93. There is a Daedric quest involving Sheogorath, the Prince of Madness. He is found inside the mind of a dead emperor, Pelagius the Mad, conducting some form of cosmic therapy. He is cheerful, chaotic, and occasionally funny. He is also, depending on how you approach the lore, a previous player character, the hero of Kvatch from Oblivion, who was transformed into a Daedric prince after the events of that game. 94. This is not confirmed. It is suggested. The game points toward it, with specific references that would be meaningful to players of Oblivion, and meaningless to those who haven't. Sheogorath does not confirm or deny it. He simply enjoys his work. 95. Pelagius the Mad, whose mind you explore in this quest, was a real emperor in the history of the Elder Scrolls universe. He existed centuries before the events of Skyrim. His historical reputation is that of a paranoid, erratic ruler. Inside his mind, as rendered in the quest, his fears are visible as creatures and landscapes. The developers turned a historical footnote into a psychological portrait. 96. The Wabajak is Sheogorath's artifact, a staff that transforms enemies into random things. Turning an enemy into a chicken is a valid combat strategy in Skyrim because of this item. The item has appeared in multiple Elder Scrolls games. It is consistently absurd and consistently powerful. 97. There is a location called the Bard's College in Solitude. It is, on the surface, a school for musicians and storytellers. It also maintains records of history, keeps old songs alive, and is in some sense the institution responsible for cultural memory in Skyrim. The principal quest involves recovering a lost instrument. The stakes are low. The atmosphere of institutional archive is thick. 98. The Bard's College burns an effigy of King Olaf One Eye every year as part of a festival. King Olaf was a historical Nord king who is remembered poorly by some and heroically by others. The festival is meant to acknowledge his defeat. A student at the college believes this is historically inaccurate and wants to reclaim Olaf's poem before the burning. The game presents this as a minor quest. The student's frustration at an institution confidently celebrating a history she believes is wrong is something many academics will recognize. 99. Shalidor was an archmage of great power in ancient history. He built Labyrinthian as a test of magical skill. He spent much of his life in pursuit of power and knowledge. He also wrote a book called Shalidor's Insights, which is a meditation on the nature of magic. The book is available in the game, and it is genuinely thoughtful. A character defined by ambition, reflecting on whether ambition was worth it, in a text that survived him by thousands of years. 100. Labyrinthian, the ruin Shalidor built, has a ghost in it. The ghost is Savos Aran's friend, one of the ones trapped there. The ghost doesn't fully understand what has happened. It keeps asking where the others went. The player gets no dialogue option that would help. You simply walk past. 101. There is a word wall at Labyrinthian. While you approach it, the sound design shifts. The music drops. There is nothing but wind. Then the spectral dragon rises, and the moment is enormous and silent. The game engineers this moment without telegraphing it. 102. The sounds in Skyrim are built from layers. Wind is layered with specific textures, depending on location. Valley wind is different from mountain wind. Interior spaces have their own acoustic profiles. The dungeons echo in ways that open caves do not. This is not something most players consciously notice, but it shapes the emotional experience of exploration. 103. There is ambient dialogue in most settlements that changes depending on the time of day. Farmers have things they say at dawn that they don't say at noon. Merchants close up and say different things as dusk approaches. Guards change shifts and acknowledge each other. The game's NPCs are living by a schedule that doesn't require the player to be watching. 104. The guards in Whiterun will, after the dragon's attack, start saying, "Let me guess, someone stole your sweet roll," as a joke. This is a reference to a question asked in a previous Elder Scrolls game, Oblivion, as part of character creation. It was a specific test question. The guards of Whiterun are joking about it as though it's ancient history. For them, it is. 105. The arrow in the knee line. I used to be an adventurer like you, then I took an arrow in the knee. Became famous as a meme almost immediately after the game launched. It is said by guards across Skyrim. If you speak to them, many of them have more specific guard dialogue that is considerably more interesting. The meme obscured the fact that guards are one of the better written NPC categories in the game. 106. Whiterun's guards are Imperial Legion soldiers, even though Whiterun's Jarl tries to maintain neutrality in the Civil War. The tension between Balgruf's neutrality and the Imperial composition of his guard is never made explicit in dialogue, but it's there in the faction data. 107. Jarl Balgruf the Greater is generally considered the most competent Jarl in Skyrim. His hold is the most stable. His city functions. His relationship with his children is shown in small moments of warmth that most Jarls don't get. He is also deeply unhappy about being forced to choose a side in the civil war. When he finally does, there is a wariness to it. 108. Balgruf's housecarl is Irileth, a Dunmer woman who is fiercely loyal and professionally skeptical. She is not a Nord. In a game where Nords are often presented as culturally insular and suspicious of outsiders, the most capable Jarl employs a non-Nord in his most trusted position. The game doesn't comment on this. It's just how it is. 109. Lydia, the housecarl assigned to the player by Balgruf, became one of the most beloved and complained about companions in the game. Her most famous line is, "I am sworn to carry your burdens," which she says with a flatness that players interpreted as weary resignation. Bethesda has said this was not the intent, but the reading stuck, because it fit. 110. Companions, the warrior guild in Whiterun, not the follower system, are secretly werewolves. All of the senior members are. The secret is kept from outsiders. When it is revealed to the player, the framing is that this is a gift, a blessing from Hircine, the Daedric prince of the hunt. One member, Kodlak, does not see it this way. He wants to die clean, without the beast's influence, so he can enter Sovngarde. He is trying to find a cure when the questline begins. 111. Kodlak dies before he finds the cure. The questline continues with the player finding the cure on his behalf, posthumously cleansing his soul. The ritual to do this involves fighting a manifestation of the wolf spirit within Kodlak's soul in the realm of Hircine. After the battle, Kodlak's wolf is defeated, and he is free. He thanks you from inside a vision. He seems at peace. He is already gone. 112. Vilkas and Farkas are brothers and senior companions. Vilkas is analytical and sharp. Farkas is straightforward and kind. They are often described by fans as the most wholesome relationship in the game. They are fully voiced, fully characterized, and mostly used as quest givers and followers. Most players don't talk to them beyond what the quests require. 113. Ayla the Huntress is a companion who is proud of being a werewolf and opposed to finding a cure. If you complete the companion's questline and then complete the cure ritual, Ayla's personal questline becomes unavailable. The game registers that you've cured yourself and locks her out. She is specifically drawn to companions who embrace the beast blood. She is consistent. 114. Hircine, the Daedric prince of the hunt, appears in a quest involving a werewolf named Sinding, who killed a child while transformed. Sinding was wearing a cursed ring of Hircine's that made his transformations uncontrollable. Hircine wants him punished. The quest asks you to hunt Sinding, or to help Sinding. Either way, Hircine is present and watching. He finds the whole situation entertaining. Not maliciously, he simply finds hunts entertaining. That is his nature. 115. Sinding, the werewolf at the centre of this quest, is found skinned alive in a cave if you choose to hunt him. Hircine skinned him as a consequence of his failure. He is still alive. He is clearly in pain. He asks you to finish it. The game allows you to do so, or to walk away. It is one of the more genuinely disturbing moments in the game, tucked into a quest that most players treat as a side errand. 116. Nemira, the Daedric Prince of Decay and Ancient Darkness, has a quest that involves a secret society of cannibals operating within Markarth. The society is called the Coven of Nemira. Its members are respected citizens, a jarl, priests, guards. The feast is held in a place most players never look. The invitation is offered casually, as though it's nothing unusual. 117. If you accept Nemira's invitation and participate in the feast, you receive her ring, which allows you to feed on corpses for bonuses. The ring is functional. The game treats cannibalism as a mechanical advantage with a dedicated item slot, normalized within the context of Daedric worship. 118. Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination and Enslavement, has a quest that begins with finding a defiled altar in an abandoned house in Markarth. A priest of Boethia is chained to the altar, beaten nearly to death. Molag Bal wants you to finish what he started by killing the priest. The quest is one of the few in the game that has no neutral resolution. You either do what Molag Bal wants, or you abandon the quest and leave the priest there. 119. If you leave the priest and come back later, he is dead. Something finished the job. The game does not explain what. 120. Boethia, the Daedric prince of plots and murder, requires you to sacrifice a follower in order to begin her quest. The follower must be brought to the shrine willingly, and then killed on the pillar. There is no way to do this quest without betraying a companion's trust. The game requires this of you. It is not optional. 121. Meridia, the Daedric prince of light and life, one of the more benevolent princes, requires you to cleanse her temple of undead. She speaks to you through a giant beam of light. She is imperious and expects immediate compliance. When you complete her quest, she gives you a weapon called Dawnbreaker that destroys undead with explosions of light. She thanks you in a tone that does not really sound like thanks. 122. Azura, another Daedric prince, has a shrine on a mountain in Whiterun Hold. The shrine is tended by a group of female devotees who have been there for generations. Azura is associated with magic and is particularly revered by the Dunmer. Her quest involves a Dunmer mage who made a bargain he didn't fully understand. The resolution is melancholy in the way that most Daedric quests eventually become. 123. Malin Varen, the mage in Azura's quest, was trying to escape death by imprisoning his soul inside Azura's star. This is, theoretically, a form of immortality. The problem is that the soul inside the star is trapped in a space the size of a jewel, alone, with nothing, forever. He seems to have arrived at this destination before considering what it would feel like. 124. Azura's star, before Malin corrupted it, was a reusable soul gem, the only one in the game. After the quest, you can either return it to Azura and receive the star back in its pure form, or give it to a different character who will convert it into the Black Star, a black soul gem version that can trap human souls and is also reusable. The choice is permanent. 125. There is a location called Sartal that is the oldest Nord settlement in Skyrim. It was burned by the ancient elves, the Falmer, in an event called the Night of Tears, which was one of the defining tragedies of early Nord history. Inside the ruins, beneath the rubble, is the Eye of Magnus. The oldest place in Skyrim is hiding the most dangerous thing in Skyrim. 126. The Night of Tears is described in a book of the same name. The book suggests that the elves didn't attack Sarthal out of racial hatred. They attacked because they found something there and wanted it for themselves. That something was the Eye of Magnus. The Nords had been living on top of it without knowing what it was. High Hrothgar, the monastery of the Greybeards, sits at around 7,000 steps up the throat of the world. The path leading to it is called the 7,000 Steps. Pilgrims have been making that journey for generations. Along the way, inscribed stones mark the path with passages from the history of the Thuam. If you read each stone as you pass it, you receive the full history of the voice without having to find a single book. 128. The atmosphere at High Hrothgar is one of the most distinctive in the game. The monks speak in whispers. The architecture is ancient and massive. Snow blows through hallways. The Greybeards practice the Thuam in silence in the main hall, and if you stand near them, you can feel the vibration without seeing anything. It is one of those environments that communicates everything through design rather than exposition. Arngir, the Greybeard who speaks for the others, is the most diplomatic character in the game by profession, and the most frustrated by temperament. He answers your questions with patience, and then visibly gathers himself before answering the next one. He is very good at his job, and very tired of it. 130. The four Greybeards each represent extreme mastery of the voice. Their shouts, at full power, would be devastating. They do not use them. They contain themselves entirely, living in restraint as a philosophical practice. When they summon you at the beginning of the game and shout your name, the sound shatters glass throughout Skyrim. That is them being restrained. 131. There is a dungeon called Hold in the southeast of Skyrim. Inside are the remains of a dragon cult that fought to the last member against the forces that came to destroy them. The final cultists poisoned themselves rather than surrender. Their bodies are still there, sitting at a table. The table still has cups on it. 132. Captain Valmir, an Ultima soldier you meet outside Hold, gives you the key to enter the dungeon and asks you to retrieve a dragon priest mask. He claims to be a Stormcloak officer, or an Imperial officer. He adjusts his claim to match whoever you are. If you retrieve the mask and try to give it to him, there is a complication. 133. Valmir turns out to be a Thalmor agent in disguise. The Thalmor are collecting dragon priest masks. For what purpose? The game does not say. It suggests something significant without explaining it. This is a thread that goes nowhere, which is either a planned future expansion that never happened, or a deliberate example of a world with conspiracies too large to fully explore. 134. Ragvald is a dungeon containing a dragon priest named Otar the Mad. 2 guardians are sealed in sarcophagi alongside him, holding him imprisoned. The guardians have a brief dialogue moment when you find them. They have been in those sarcophagi for a very long time. They seem glad to have a purpose again, even if that purpose is fighting you. 135. Otar the Mad is named for a madness that consumed him before he was sealed. What caused the madness is in a book in the dungeon. He was not always mad, he was, at some point, a person. The mask he wears enhances fire, frost, and shock resistance. He became something kept in a box by the people who served him. 136. Dragon priests have names that translate in Devazel. Morake means glorious. Rakot means fury. Vokun means shadow. Nakrin means vengeance. Their names are descriptions of what they were, or what they became. The naming convention is a kind of ancient epitaph. 137. Volsung's name means horror. He is found in a dungeon on an island in the northwest of Skyrim. The island itself has a name, Volskige, which means horror sky. The whole place is named after the dread associated with what lives there. Someone named it while the priest was still alive. 138. Croesus means sorrow. He is found atop a high mountain peak. His mask enhances lockpicking, alchemy, and archery. A dragon priest named Sorrow who enhanced skills of patience and precision. One possible reading is that sorrow, in the ancient Nord worldview, sharpened perception, marked for death. A shout used by the Dark Brotherhood's most powerful assassins translates as Kree Loon Aus, kill leech suffer. The shout weakens armor and causes ongoing damage. It is one of the few shouts with a specifically dark application, and its words in sequence describe exactly what it does to the target. 140. Dismay, a shout that causes enemies to flee, translates as Fasrumar, fear and terror. It is a shout that, word by word, escalates. The first word creates fear, the second drives movement, the third sustains it. The structure mirrors the experience of being terrified. 141. The dragon language has a word for love, Sunheim. It appears once in the game, in an inscription. It is not translated anywhere in the base game. Fans reconstructed the meaning from the grammar of surrounding text. 142. There is a letter in Skyrim addressed to a man from his wife who has left him. She writes that she found someone else, and that she hopes he understands. The letter is in a chest, in a house. The man who received it is dead. There is no associated quest. The story begins and ends in that letter. There are books in Skyrim that contain complete short stories. The monomyth is a theological text that describes the creation of the world from the perspectives of multiple religions and shows how they contradict each other. Might of Tears is historical. The Lusty Argonian Maid is theatrical and comic. A Dance in Fire is an adventure story. Chance's Folly is a heist story. They are all fully readable, and most players never open them. 144. The Real Baranziah is a 9-volume biography of a Dun McQueen that includes material Bethesda initially considered too explicit for the base game and was altered. The original version was in a previous Elder Scrolls game. The Skyrim version is more restrained. Both versions suggest that Baranziah lived a life far more complicated than any single book could contain. 145. Baranziah herself appears in previous Elder Scrolls games as a living character. By the time of Skyrim, she is elderly and has largely withdrawn from public life. She is not in the game as a character. She is only in the books. Her presence is historical. 146. The Thieves' Guild questline involves collecting 36 unusual gems scattered across Skyrim's holds. These are called Stones of Baranziah. When collected and returned to a fence, they form the Crown of Baranziah, a historical artifact. The crown is given to the museum in Solitude. The reward for collecting all 36 is a passive ability that makes gems more likely to be found in chests. The collection is an enormous task. The reward is modest. The game seems to understand this. 147. Delphine's name is French for dolphin. This was, according to some developer interviews, unintentional. It does not affect anything. It is simply there. 148. There is a book called The Whispering Door in the game. The quest of the same name involves a Daedric artifact called the Ebony Blade, which is Mephalah's artifact. Mephalah is the Daedric prince of secrets and manipulation. The blade grows stronger when you use it to kill people who trust you. The quest frames this as a dark power. The blade is charming. It whispers to you. It seems happy when you feed it. 149. Mephalah's association with spiders, webs, and tangled relationships is expressed throughout the quest. The Ebony Blade's power structure, it gains power from betrayal, is a mechanical expression of Mephalah's entire philosophy. Malakath, the Daedric prince, associated with the spurned and the ostracized, is the patron of the orcs. This is significant because orcs in Skyrim are not welcomed in most Nordic cities and often live in walled strongholds called orc strongholds, where outsiders are not permitted without an invitation. The god of the rejected, as the patron of a rejected people, has a certain elegance to it. 151. Orcs in Skyrim follow a code called the Code of Malakath. The code governs everything from combat to family structure to the treatment of the weak. One of its requirements is the rite of passage. Young orcs must complete a trial of strength to be considered adults. The chief of the stronghold is always the strongest, who proved himself by defeating the previous chief. Largashbur, an orc stronghold in the Rift, is under attack by giants when you first find it. This is a sign, within the orc religious framework, that Malakath has cursed the stronghold. The quest to lift the curse involves a sacrifice. The chief who receives that quest had the weakness to allow the curse to begin. He knows what the resolution requires. 153. The orc smith, Eorland Greymane, is described by other characters as one of the best smiths in Skyrim. He forges weapons at the Skyforge, an ancient forge that sits above Whiterun, built around a giant eagle skeleton. The forge has been used since before the city existed. Eorland seems to know something about it that he doesn't fully explain. 154. The Greymane family and the Battleborn family in Whiterun have a feud rooted in the Civil War. Greymane supports the Stormcloaks, Battleborn supports the Imperials. They have lived beside each other for generations and now do not speak. Their feud is the Civil War made personal and domestic. 155. Avelstein Greymane is hiding in the Greymane house because he fears imperial arrest. His brother Thorald was captured and is being held by the Thalmor. The family believes he is dead. A letter suggests otherwise. The quest to find him is one of the game's quieter moments of genuine stakes. Not world-ending, just a family trying to keep itself whole. 156. Thorald Greymane, when found, has clearly been held and interrogated for a long time. He is calm. He asks about his family. He thanks you with a straightforwardness that is the Elder Scrolls version of restraint. He has had time to make peace with his situation. He is just glad it is over. 157. The Thalmor Justiciars enforced the White Gold Concordat, a treaty that bans the worship of Talos. They patrol Skyrim's roads looking for Talos worshippers. Finding a shrine to Talos is a crime punishable by death. The Concordat was part of the terms that ended the Great War. The Aldmeri Dominion agreed to peace in exchange for Talos's divine status being revoked. 158. The theological argument about Talos is genuine within the fiction. Talos was a man, Tiber Septim, who founded the empire. He is worshipped as a god by Nords and many humans. The Thalmor argue that a man cannot become a god, and that acknowledging Talos as one undermines the basis of elven divinity. It is not simply a political argument, it is a metaphysical one. 159. Tiber Septim used a Dwemer war machine called the Numidium to complete his conquest of Tamriel. The power source for the Numidium was something called the Heart of Lorcan, which is the divine heart of a dead god. Tiber Septim may have used the heart in a way that changed his nature. What exactly happened is described in competing accounts. The game does not adjudicate between them. 160. Lorcan is the dead god whose heart powers the Numidium. He is also, in some traditions, a trickster who convinced the other gods to help create the mortal world, and was punished for it. His heart was ripped out and cast down to the mortal plane, where it eventually became Red Mountain on the island of Morrowind. This is not mentioned in Skyrim, but it is relevant to understanding why the Dwemer were interested in it. 161. The Dwemer found the heart of a dead god and tried to use it to ascend to godhood. Whether this worked or not is one of those questions the franchise has been asking for decades. The moment they tried is the moment they all disappeared. These two events happened simultaneously. Most scholars within the fiction believe they are related. 162. There is a book in Skyrim called Nunak's Fire and Faith, which describes a Dwemer scholar investigating the nature of the gods. He is skeptical that gods exist at all. He concludes that what mortals call divine power is simply a sufficiently advanced form of something material. He disappears before finishing his work. The book ends mid-argument. 163. In Dwemer ruins, there are pipes and gears and mechanisms that serve functions nobody has been able to fully map. The ruins are functional, but their function is not entirely understood. This is built into the lore. Even the scholars within the game don't know what all of it was for. 164. Centurion steam constructs, the large bipedal Dwemer automatons, have a design that reappears across every Dwemer ruin in the game. They are clearly produced from a template, which means the Dwemer had standardized manufacturing. Their design includes a chest compartment that contains unusual items, sometimes including Dwemer oil, sometimes including items that have no obvious reason to be inside a machine. The implication is that the constructs have been running long enough for things to accumulate inside them. 165. There is a Dwemer museum in Markarth. Calselmo oversees it. It contains examples of Dwemer artifacts, books, and reconstructions. One exhibit has a sign that says the display is the scholar's best guess at what the object was used for. The uncertainty is presented plainly. 166. Markarth itself is built in layers. The Dwemer city is the stone infrastructure. The Nord city is built on top of it. Beneath both, there are tunnels where the Forsworn operate and where Chuan-Zel, a flooded Dwemer ruin, sits. The city is an archaeological cross-section of the history of the Reach. 167. There is a treasure hunt, initiated by finding a specific book that leads the player on a multi-step search across multiple holds for notched pickaxe on the summit of the Throat of the World. The pickaxe has a specific enchantment that improves smithing. The name is a subtle reference to the late Notch, the creator of Minecraft, placed at the highest point in the game as a tribute. Whether Bethesda cleared this with Notch is unclear, but the placement suggests intent. 168. The Throat of the World also contains a chest that is technically accessible very early in the game, through a specific route that avoids the High Hrothgar path. The chest contains high-level items scaled to the player's level. It is clearly placed as a reward for explorers who choose not to follow the road. 169. There is a shipwreck called the Pilgrim's Trench in the Sea of Ghosts. It is underwater. It is not marked on the map. It contains the body of a pilgrim, with a journal, several valuable items, and a note that was never finished. The note breaks off after, "I can see the shore." The journey ended before the destination. 170. There is a lighthouse called Healer's Folly on the northern coast. It is a ship, deliberately crashed. The captain wrecked it to create a smuggling cove. Her crew went along with it. The whole operation is still running when you find it. The lighthouse, now an improvised criminal base, was named after the captain. She seems entirely self-aware about the absurdity. 171. The Stormcloak Rebellion is built on genuine grievances. The Nords feel that the Empire abandoned them by signing the White Gold Concordat and agreeing to ban Talos worship. Many of the Stormcloaks fight not for Ulfric specifically, but because they believe their way of life is being dismantled by an outside force. Ulfric channels this feeling. Whether he genuinely shares it is ambiguous. The Imperial side is also built on genuine principles. Many Imperials believe that Skyrim leaving the Empire would weaken the only institution capable of resisting the Thalmor, and that Ulfric's rebellion, whatever its cause, serves Aldmeri interests by dividing humanity. Both positions are reasonable. The game does not resolve the argument. 173. General Tullius, the Imperial General, does not particularly like Nords, and does not fully understand the religious dimension of the conflict. He is focused on military and political outcomes. His subordinate, Legate Ricky, is a Nord who supports the Empire and is far more aware of what the rebellion means to the people fighting in it. Their relationship is one of respect and mutual frustration. 174. Legate Ricky believes in the Empire for different reasons than Tullius. She believes in the idea of unified humanity. When old comrades end up on opposite sides, she fights them anyway because she has decided the cause matters more than the relationship. There is a moment near the end of the Imperial questline where she confronts this directly and does not look at peace with her choice. 175. Galmar Stonefist, Ulfric's second in command, is the inverse of Ricky. He is completely committed, apparently at peace with every decision, and considerably angrier. He serves as a contrast. Two senior officers on opposite sides, one wrestling with her choice, one apparently done wrestling. 176. Ulfric Stormcloak, privately, may not be sure the rebellion is going to succeed. There is dialogue where he sounds less like a man of unshakable conviction, and more like someone who has committed to something and must now see it through. Or this may be a reading too far. The game is ambiguous on his inner life. 177. Parthurnax tells the Dragonborn that the civil war is, in the scale of what Alduin represents, a small thing. He is not wrong. In the time it takes to complete the Civil War questline, Alduin is still out there raising the dead and returning dragons to the world. The Civil War questline and the main quest are in tension with each other as priorities. The player prioritizes one or the other. The game never forces the choice directly. There is a dragon named Sahloknir who is resurrected by Alduin at Kynesgrove. This is the player's first encounter with Alduin directly, and the first time you see a dragon raised from a burial mound. Alduin speaks to Sahloknir before raising him. The words are in Dovazul. Alduin is telling his general that he has returned and that it is time. Sahloknir responds with something that translates to readiness and loyalty. The exchange is between two beings who clearly knew each other. The player walks into the middle of an ancient reunion. 179. Sahloknir's burial mound is at Kynesgrove, which is named for the sacred grove of Kyne, the Nordic name for Kinnereth, goddess of wind and sky and nature. The resurrection of a dragon happens in a place sacred to the sky goddess. Whether this is irony or appropriateness depends on interpretation. 180. The dragons in Skyrim are not simply monsters. They are ancient beings with complex politics, hierarchies, and histories. Some of them chose to oppose Alduin. Some of them joined his return. Some are simply old and prefer to be left alone. The faction dynamics among dragons are as complex as those among humans, but compressed into a species with a fraction of the living members. 181. Odarvying, the dragon you capture and make an ally, was previously one of Alduin's most trusted lieutenants. He sides with you not out of moral conviction, but because Alduin was defeated, and the strongest being commands the loyalty of dragons. He is pragmatic rather than principled, and refreshingly honest about this. 182. Dernevier, a dragon encountered in the Soul Cairn, made a deal with the Ideal Masters, the rulers of that realm, centuries ago in exchange for power. He has been trapped there ever since. He can be summoned to Skyrim temporarily once you help him, and his name means curse never dying in Dovizul. He is a dragon made immortal through imprisonment. His name describes both his power and his sentence. 183. The Ideal Masters are the entities who rule the Soul Cairn. They were once powerful sorcerers who made themselves into something beyond mortality by becoming pure embodiments of magical power. They are never seen, they are only referenced. Their economy runs on trapped souls. They are perfectly content with this. 184. Inside the Soul Cairn there are fragments of dialogue from wandering souls. One of them mentions a dog, another mentions a specific town in Cyrodiil that was destroyed in a war. Another says something about a debt she never repaid. They are clearly people, or they were. The Soul Cairn gives them just enough voice to remind the player of that. 185. There is a ghost in Folgenthur, who is the spirit of a man named Mikril Galderson. He is one of 3 brothers who were divided from their father's amulet centuries ago as punishment. The spirit is not entirely there. It doesn't know it's dead, or it does, but it can't process it. The Galder legend is one of the more fully realized non-main quest stories in the game. 186. Archmage Galder was a powerful mage who was killed by his 3 sons after they stole his amulet, which they divided into 3 parts. The sons were then hunted down and entombed with their pieces. The king who ordered the purge also ordered the story erased from history. The quest to reassemble the amulet involves going into each tomb, fighting each son's spirit, and collecting the pieces. It is one of the most cohesive dungeon quest sequences in the game. 187. When the amulet is reassembled at Galder's tomb, the 3 brother spirits appear for a final confrontation. After they are defeated, Galder's ghost appears and restores the amulet to its full power as thanks. He is gentle, he doesn't say much. He gives you the amulet and fades, a father cleaning up after his sons, thousands of years late. The amulet itself, the Galder amulet, has a particular design and bonuses that make it one of the more desirable early game items. It is also one of the most narratively complete items in the game. You know exactly what it is, where it came from, and what it cost. Most powerful items don't come with that kind of history attached. 189. There is a book called Lost Legends that describes the Galder story and starts the associated quest. The book is a legend. It presents the events as possibly mythological. Finding out the events are literally true is a quiet inversion of the frame. 190. Skuldafn is the only major location in the game that cannot be reached on foot. It is accessible only by dragon at a specific point in the main quest. It contains the portal to Sovngarde. The inaccessibility suggests it was hidden deliberately, and the dragon's ability to reach it suggests who it was hidden from. 191. Sovngarde is the Nordic afterlife, a realm of feasting, storytelling, and combat for worthy warriors. It is genuinely beautiful in the game's aesthetic vocabulary. Golden light, grand architecture, warriors who died long ago. The only problem is that Alduin has been devouring the souls there, and the feast hall is shrouded in mist that keeps the souls confused and weakened. You can speak to several notable Nord heroes in Sovngarde. They have been there for varying amounts of time. Some are placid, some are eager for the fight that's coming. Ysgramor, legendary founder of the Companions, is referenced in Sovngarde's context, but does not appear as a character. The heroes who do appear were chosen carefully. They are figures with actual historical weight within the lore. 193. Soon, the guardian of the Whalebone Bridge in Sovngarde is a shield thane of Shore, the Nordic name for Lorcan, the dead god. He stands at the bridge and tests those who would cross. He is enormous. He fights you when you arrive, not out of hostility, but as a test. He seems genuinely pleased when you survive. 194. Shore, in Nordic tradition, is the god of the dead and a friend to humanity. In the traditions of the elves, Lorcan is a trickster and a villain. The same entity is remembered completely differently by different cultures. The game contains both traditions without explaining which is accurate. They may both be. 195. The final battle with Alduin takes place in Sovngarde, with 3 ancient heroes fighting alongside you. Alduin, in this context, is fighting in the realm of his victims. He is powerful, but also, for the first time, surrounded by people who are not afraid of him. The design of the arena suggests the developers understood what this location meant. 196. After Alduin is defeated, he says he will return. This is not empty threat, it is lore accurate. Alduin is the World Eater, and he is supposed to return at the end of time. Defeating him in Sovngarde has delayed something that was inevitable. The Nord heroes around you acknowledge this. The battle was not a permanent victory. It was a postponement. 197. Alduin's defeat prompts a moment where the sky in Sovngarde clears and the souls can finally rest. It is presented visually with a shift in the lighting. It is brief, and then the game sends you home. No ceremony, no title card. You find yourself back at Skuldafn, and the world is still there. Odarviing, after you return, tells you that word of Alduin's defeat will spread among dragons. Some will submit, some will not. The defeat of the World Eater, within the logic of dragon society, is both a political event and a theological one. Odarviing delivers this in 3 sentences and seems satisfied. 199. The Greybeards, after the main quest, will acknowledge what you did in a single line of additional dialogue if you speak to Arngeir. He thanks you, briefly. He does not say much. The understatement fits the institution. 200. Parthenax, if alive, remains on the throat of the world. You can visit him after the main quest. He speaks about what comes next. For him, for the dragons, for the world, he is still meditating. He will probably be meditating for a very long time. He seems okay with this. 201. There is a fishing spot in a lake east of Whiterun, where a mud crab lives that is notably larger than any other mud crab in the area. It is not named. It is not special by the game's mechanical standards. It is simply anomalously larger. Fans have named it. The game has not. There are giant camps across Skyrim's plains. The giants are peaceful if unprovoked, and have a clear economy. They herd mammoths, collect the milk, and process it into something they store in enormous pots. They are not aggressive by nature. They are enormous pastoral farmers who will kill you efficiently if you walk into their space uninvited. 203. Mammoths in Skyrim are important enough to have burial sites. There are mammoth skull locations across the plains. The giants appear to have something to do with these sites. They are found near them sometimes. Whether the burial is a giant tradition or a mammoth, one is not explained. 204. There is a cheese wheel in the Jarl's residence in Riften. It is on a high shelf. Getting to it requires jumping on furniture in a specific sequence. The cheese itself is ordinary. The effort required to reach it is disproportionate. This is either a test, a joke, or an accident of level design that players turned into a joke. 205. There are 2 characters named Nafi and Bran Shay in Riften, who both have sad backstories that most players encounter briefly and then move on from. Nafi is a man living in a ruin near the city who is waiting for his sister, who has been dead for years but who he does not know is dead. Bran Shay is a man in the market who grew up without knowing his family. 206. A Dark Brotherhood quest asks you to frame Brandshay for theft, leading to his arrest. This is casual cruelty, directed at someone who has already had a difficult life, delivered as a contract. The quest does not editorialize, the player can simply do it or not. 207. Nafi can be a Dark Brotherhood target. His contract is listed as a mercy killing in the flavor text. The person who ordered it believes he is suffering. The kill is presented differently from most contracts. It is still a murder. The framing is darker for the attempt to justify it. 208. The Dark Brotherhood questline ends with the assassination of the Emperor. The Emperor in Skyrim is Titus Meadi II. He is not a character you know before the quest. When you reach him on the Emperor's ship, he is old, tired, and aware that something is coming. He asks only one thing before it happens. The request is small and personal. It is the most human the Emperor becomes, and it is the last thing he does. 209. After the Emperor's assassination, the Dark Brotherhood is considered successful, but the Brotherhood is in ruins. Astrid, the leader, betrayed the Brotherhood to the Emperor's Penitus Oculatus in an attempt to preserve her family. The attempt failed. The Brotherhood's sanctuary was destroyed. Several members died. Astrid is found burned alive, but barely, in the ruins. She asks you to finish it. This is the second time in the questline that someone asks you to do this. Both times, the game gives you the option. 210. The Dark Brotherhood's remaining sanctuary is in Dawnstar, a cold, sparse hold capital in the north. The new sanctuary is much smaller than the old one. What remains of the Brotherhood gathers there. The final mission sends you to kill the Emperor anyway. Even destroyed, the Brotherhood completes the contract. It is the only thing that defines them. Cicero, if allowed to live, ends up in the Dawnstar Sanctuary. He is cheerful, chaotic, and devoted to the Night Mother. He is also one of the most competent fighters available as a follower. He is good at exactly one thing and completely uninterested in everything else. 212. The Night Mother's body is in a coffin in the Dawnstar Sanctuary. She continues to speak to the listener. After the questline concludes, she has plans. She is always working. She has been dead for generations, and she is still from within her coffin, managing an empire of assassins. 213. Lucien Lechance appears as a ghost during the Dark Brotherhood questline. He was a speaker of the Brotherhood in a previous era, executed under false accusations of treason. His ghost appears to guide the listener at key moments. He is calm, refined, and completely professional even as a ghost. If you've played Oblivion, where he was a living character, his appearance has additional resonance. 214. The Dawn Guard faction has a character named Isran, who leads the vampire hunters. He is harsh, inflexible, and has a history with Dawn Guard that is hinted at, but not fully revealed. He refounded the Order after believing it had grown complacent. He is often unpleasant. He is also, within the context of a world with vampires who are planning to blot out the sun, completely correct in his assessment that the threat is real. 215. Sorine Gerard is a Dawn Guard member and inventor who is interested in Dwemer technology. She is one of the more quietly competent supporting characters in the Dawn Guard questline. She builds crossbows in a game where everyone else uses standard bows. The crossbow is a specific mechanical choice that suggests someone in that faction is thinking ahead. 216. The crossbow introduced in Dawn Guard is mechanically different from bows. Slower to reload but powerful per shot. It rewards patience and positioning. It fits the Dawn Guard aesthetic, which is one of preparation and discipline in the face of a threat most people don't believe is real. 217. Serana is arguably the most fully realized companion in the base game and all DLC. She reacts to her environment, has specific dialogue about different locations, and has a personal arc that continues beyond the Dawn Guard questline's completion. She also, uniquely, does not worship any deity and will tell you so plainly if you suggest she visit a temple. Her relationship with religion has been complicated by her parents. 218. Serana can be cured of her vampirism at the end of the Dawn Guard questline if you guide her to it. The process involves confronting what she was, what she gained from it, and what she loses. She does this quietly. If cured, she says the sunlight is strange. She has not felt it in centuries. She stands in it for a moment. There is a werewolf named Sinding, as mentioned. There is also a werewolf transformation available to the player through the companions. There is a werewolf questline through her scene. There is a vampire lord transformation available through Dawnguard. The game contains multiple complete alternate identity systems, each with their own quests and lore, and they are incompatible with each other in certain combinations. 220. The Vampire Lord form has specific animations and attacks that are not available in the base game's combat vocabulary. The attacks are designed to feel powerful and alien. The first time you use the Vampire Lord ability that drains life force at range, the animation is deliberately slow and dramatic. It is designed to feel like a different kind of combat than anything else in the game. 221. Lord Harkon, the main antagonist of Dawnguard, was once a human king who sacrificed his family to Molag Bal in exchange for vampiric power. He sees this as the greatest thing he ever did. The game doesn't present him as simply evil. He has a genuine philosophy. He believes mortals are livestock and vampires are the natural apex. He has believed this for a very long time. 222. Harkon's wife and daughter, who he sacrificed, and who became vampires, do not share his gratitude. Serana's mother Valerica made choices of her own in response to his. His daughter fights against him. The family that was supposed to anchor his dynasty became the means of his undoing. 223. Inside Harkon's castle, Volkiar Keep. There are paintings of the family from before the transformation. The family, in the paintings, looks ordinary. The contrast with what they became is not commented on. The paintings are simply there. 224. The interior of Volkiar Keep is decorated with bones, blood, and objects accumulated over centuries of vampire occupation. Some of the decorations seem deliberately artistic. Someone arranged these things. Someone in this castle at some point had aesthetic preferences. The fact that the decor is simultaneously gruesome and considered is part of what makes it feel inhabited rather than simply haunted. 225. Dragonbone weapons were introduced in Dawnguard and are the highest tier weapons in the game. They require dragon bones to craft. Dragon bones are heavy. Carrying enough to craft a full set of dragon bone armor requires planning. The game has been building toward this category of equipment since the first dragon was killed, and Dawnguard delivers it as a reward for patience. 226. Dragon scale armor is slightly lighter than dragon bone and has slightly different aesthetics, scales and light rather than bone and heavy. The two options are designed to appeal to different player sensibilities. Both require farming dragons. The farming loop is depending on the player, meditative or tedious. There is a dragon named Volfuriol, who can be encountered in Blackreach. He is activated by shouting at a large, glowing orb. He does not appear on any questline. He is simply there in the massive underground Dwemer city, living in the dark, waiting for someone to make the right noise. He has been there a very long time. 228. Blackreach itself is a location that most players access for a single quest and then never return to. It contains several word walls, several named dragon spawns, an enormous amount of valuable materials, and an atmosphere that is unlike anything else in the game. It is the size of a small hold. Most players see 5% of it. 229. There is a quote from Cal Selmo inscribed on a wall near Blackreach's entrance. Here lies wisdom. Seek not to follow in the footsteps of others, but what they sought. The quote is not Cal Selmo's own. He is quoting an ancient Dwemer text he translated. The wisdom is, appropriately, in the voice of a civilization that sought something beyond mortality and vanished. 230. There is a character named Mothgrow Bagel who is the court wizard for Understone Keep in Markarth. He wants a specific kind of ore to make a weapon. The dialogue is a minor fetch quest, but if you talk to him beyond the quest, he talks about his work with a specificity that suggests real investment. Minor characters in Skyrim often have more depth than their quest roles require. 231. There is an alchemist named Hafjorg who works in Riften's market and has a complicated relationship with her husband, who is a travelling merchant rarely in town. The relationship is described in a single line of ambient dialogue. She sounds tired. She sounds like she has said the same thing many times. 232. Riften's marketplace has a Khajiit trader named Tanelia and an indoor market with several merchants. The outdoor market is where most of the visible commerce happens. The guards are corrupt. The Jarl, if she is neutral, is weak. The Blackbriar family controls the city's actual economy. Riften is, functionally, a corrupt city pretending to be a normal one, and the characters in it have accommodated themselves to this to varying degrees. 233. Mjol the Lioness is one of the few characters in Riften openly disgusted with the corruption. She is a former adventurer who settled in Riften after being badly injured and rescued by a man named Aaron, who paid for her recovery and with whom she now lives in uncomfortable proximity. She knows the city is corrupt. She says so constantly. She has not left. The game doesn't push her on this. 234. Aaron is devoted to Mjol in a way that she seems not to fully register. He follows her around Riften. He speaks about her with obvious admiration. She is focused on the city's corruption and seems to see him as a friend. The unrequited dimension of this is ambient. 235. There is a pair of characters in Riften named Shadow and Sapphire. Shadow owes Sapphire money from a bad deal. She is threatening him, asking Sapphire to forgive the debt as a favor resolves the situation. If you have done enough work with the Thieves Guild, Sapphire gives her real name when pressed. It connects to a much larger story that existed before the game began, and it is never confirmed anywhere else. 236. Sapphire's real name, when given, is Svidi. Her past involves a village that was burned and a family that was killed. She survived and found the Thieves Guild and became what she is. The name is a door that opens briefly onto a life and then closes. 237. The Silverblood family in Markarth is similar to the Blackbriar family in Riften. They control the city's economy, the guards, and the legal system. They are in the prison, called Sidna Mine, where they use prisoners as slave labour to mine silver. The prisoners in Sidna Mine include Forsworn. The Forsworn presence in a Silverblood prison is not a coincidence. 238. Madanach is in Sidna Mine. He was put there by the Silverbloods to keep him out of the way. He has organised the other Forsworn prisoners into a functional underground society. He has been planning his escape for years. The fact that he has not yet escaped, despite clearly being capable, suggests he was waiting for the right moment or the right help. 239. The quest, No One Escapes Sidna Mine, is unusual in that it strips the player of their inventory and places them in the prison with other characters. You have to navigate a social system to escape. The characters in the mine are not simply obstacles. They are people who have been there for varying lengths of time and have developed relationships and hierarchies and resentments. The mine is a contained society. 240. There are notes written by inmates throughout Sidna Mine. They describe the conditions, the passage of time, the friendships and the feuds. One note is simply a list of days. Another is an unfinished letter to someone outside. 241. Calselmo, as established, is a scholar. His passion is the Dwemer, but there is a secondary thread in his character. He has feelings for Feline, the housecarl of the Jarl of Markarth. He is apparently too socially awkward to express this directly. A quest requires you to help him write a letter to her. The letter he drafts is full of Dwemer metaphors that Feline does not understand. Because she knows nothing about Dwemer, you can either fix the letter to be comprehensible or deliver it as is. She finds the original version confusing and charming. 242. Feline, for her part, seems quietly pleased by the attention once she understands it is intended affectionately. She is a professional soldier in a brutal city who is being courted by an absent-minded academic. The mismatch is handled without mockery. 243. In Solitude, the court wizard is named Sybil Stentor. She is very competent, somewhat cold, and not particularly sociable. There is a quest that reveals she is a vampire. This is presented as shocking, but if you pay attention to her behavior, her avoidance of windows, her diet preferences, her schedule, it fits. The game hid it in plain view. 244. Sybil has been the court wizard for a very long time. Multiple jarls have come and gone. She remains. The role of court wizard for a vampire is a perfect long game. Falk Firebeard, the steward of Solitude, is quietly the most competent administrative official in the game. He runs the capital of Skyrim with a careful, low-drama efficiency that contrasts with the political chaos of the civil war happening around him. He never seems rattled. When things go badly, he handles them. He is the character doing the actual work of governance. 246. Elisif the Fair, the Jarl of Solitude, is a young woman who became Jarl after her husband Torig was killed by Ulfric. She is grieving. She is clearly out of her depth. Her advisors run most of the actual governance. She is not incompetent. She is simply inexperienced and in a role she was not prepared for. The game doesn't present her as a joke. It presents her as a person dealing with too much at once. 247. Torig, the slain High King, is only known through descriptions. He was young, idealistic, and admired Ulfric enough to receive him as an honoured guest. The irony of that admiration and what followed is not stated. It exists in the gap between the descriptions of who he was and what happened. 248. There is a quest in Solitude involving an old woman named Varnius, who claims there are ghostly apparitions in a nearby cave system called Wolf Skull Cave. The quest is about Hagraven cultists attempting to resurrect the Wolf Queen Potema, a historical figure of enormous power and villainy. The quest is framed as minor at first. The stakes escalate quickly. Potema Septim, the Wolf Queen, was one of the most dangerous people in the history of the Elder Scrolls universe. Her political ambitions plunged the Empire into a civil war centuries before Skyrim's events. She was besieged in Solitude and died there. The place her spirit was confined is close enough to Solitude that the ritual to release her is nearly successful. The closeness of the location to the city she died in is deliberate. 250. After Potema's spirit is defeated, there is a brief moment in the Hall of the Dead where her presence still lingers. A priest asks you to take care of her remains. The remains are a skull. You bring the skull to the priest, who says a prayer. It is a small, quiet ceremony for one of the most feared figures in the history of the continent. 251. The Hall of the Dead in each major city is where the dead are interred. Each one has a priest of Arche, the god of the cycle of life and death. The priests are all slightly different. Some are mournful. Some are matter-of-fact. Anders in Whiterun seems vaguely distracted. Runel in Falkreath has a specific past. He was a healer in the Great War who could not save everyone, and has spent his life since trying to make peace with that. 252. Falkreath's cemetery is the largest in Skyrim. Whiterun Hold has the highest concentration of death-adjacent lore in the game. The hold is forested, cold, and associated with Daedric princes who govern death and the afterlife. The cemetery contains named headstones with epitaphs that, if read, constitute a collection of brief life stories. One headstone reads, "Here lies Lavinia, she touched the sun." Another reads, "Here lies Vigrod, who fell protecting his brothers." Another is simply a child's grave with a toy placed on it. The toy is not a prop. It is an actual item in the game's item system. Someone placed it there. 254. Lod, the blacksmith in Falkreath, is looking for a stray dog when you arrive. The dog is, of course, Barbas. Lod describes him as friendly, but strange. The understatement is considerable. The companion Vilkas has a philosophical bent that occasionally surfaces in dialogue. He reads books. He thinks about what the companions are and what they should be. He and the Harbinger have conversations about legacy and responsibility that most players skip through. He is a warrior who would rather be a scholar or at least a warrior who wonders if he should be. 256. Farkas, his brother, is the opposite. He is not incurious. He is simply not drawn to abstractions. He engages with concrete things. He is loyal and direct. When things get complicated, he simplifies them. He and Vilkas clearly love each other in the way of people who have grown up alongside each other and have completely different minds. 257. Athis, the Dunmer member of the Companions, has a particular manner in combat. He is quick, aggressive, and occasionally brutal. He is also, in off-combat dialogue, somewhat wry. He joined the Companions as an outsider in a very gnawed institution and has made it work without adapting to it. 258. Enjada Stonearm, another companion, is combative in social situations in a way that reads as insecurity. She challenges people. She seems to assume she will be judged. She is not wrong that the companions have a culture that would judge her. She has preempted the judgment by always going on offense. 259. Rhea, the newest member of the companions before the player's arrival, is enthusiastic and positive in a way that reads as someone new enough to still have uncomplicated feelings about the organization. She's good. She knows she's good. She thinks being in the companions is great. She has not been there long enough for complications. 260. Skjor, the senior companion who initiates the Harbinger into the Circle and into the werewolf secret, is killed early in the quest line. Ayla's reaction to his death is not grief in the conventional sense. It is fury. She pursues revenge immediately and directly and without consultation. She and Skjor were clearly close in a way the game establishes quickly and then takes away. 261. There is a letter in Whiterun from Ayla to Skjor that is dated before the quest line. It is a brief, practical note about a hunt. The tone suggests familiarity. The letter is findable before you know it is significant. It reads differently after. 262. The Sky Forge in Whiterun is built around the skeleton of an ancient bird. The bird is enormous. The forge at its centre has been burning for a very long time. Eorlund says the forge was there before men came to Whiterun. The companions built around something they found. What the bird was and why it was there is not explained. The word companion has significance in Nordic culture. It implies a chosen bond, not just a professional one. The ancient companions who founded the Order were Ysgramor's 500 followers who helped him retake Skyrim after the Night of Tears. That original company and the current companions in Whiterun are separated by thousands of years, but the lineage is direct. 264. Ysgramor's axe, Wuthrad, was broken, and its fragments scattered. Collecting the fragments and restoring the axe is part of the companion's questline. The restored axe is required to enter Ysgramor's tomb. The doors will not open for anyone carrying anything else. The door is literal. You bring the founder's weapon to the founder's grave. 265. Inside Ysgramor's tomb, the ghosts of ancient companions are still there, still present, still practicing. They are not aggressive unless provoked. They seem to register the presence of a modern companion. The atmosphere is one of continuation rather than haunting. 266. The ghost of Harbinger Kodlak can be encountered at the end of the companion's questline in the tomb. His wolf spirit must be defeated. After it is, he speaks briefly. He is free. He thanks the companions. He says Ysgramor is waiting. Then he is gone. 267. Werewolves in Skyrim cannot sleep. This is a note in Sinding's story. It is also implied in the transformation's effect on the player. While in beast form, certain actions become unavailable. The inability to sleep is presented as a side effect. What it means for companions who have been werewolves for decades is not addressed directly. 268. There is a ring in the game called the Ring of Namira, from the Daedric quest involving cannibalism. Wearing it and feeding on corpses gives health and stamina bonuses. The game tracks this as a buff with an icon. The icon is a skull. The game made a cannibal's power-up iconography and filed it next to the other inventory bonuses. 269. There are Daedric artifacts for all 16 Daedric princes. Collecting all of them earns an achievement. The achievement requires doing quests for some of the most morally complex figures in the game's cosmology. The achievement has a name. It is called Oblivion Walker. The name is matter of fact about what you've done. 270. Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of Knowledge and Fate, appears as a mass of eyes and tentacles. He is knowingly disturbing. He speaks in a way that suggests he knows more than he's saying. Always. Because he does. He knows everything. His artifact is the Ogma Infinium, a book that grants significant skill increases and is destroyed after use. The most powerful book in the game can only be read once. 271. There is an exploit involving the Ogma Infinium that allows it to be read multiple times by placing it in a bookshelf, removing it, and reading it again. The exploit was patched. The fact that players found it within days of release suggests the book's value was understood immediately. 272. Hermaeus Mora has a Daedric realm called Apocrypha, which is an infinite library. It is available in the Dragonborn DLC. It contains all knowledge ever recorded, written on pages that extend in every direction. The architecture is not safe. The knowledge in it, pursued too far, changes people. 273. The Dragonborn DLC introduces the first Dragonborn, Mirak, who predates the events of Skyrim by thousands of years. He made a deal with Hermaeus Mora to escape death and has been living in Apocrypha ever since. He wants out. He wants to return. He is the original, and he is furious that there is a successor. 274. Mirak was a dragon priest who received the gift of Dragonborn status from the gods and turned it against the dragons. He is the first example of what the Dragonborn can become. He is also the worst case scenario. Power without direction, without connection, preserved for millennia in service to a prince of knowledge, effectively alone in an endless library. 275. The Skarl, the indigenous people of Solstheim in the Dragonborn DLC, have a philosophical tradition rooted in the idea that all things are connected. The All-Maker, their deity, created everything and everything is an expression of the whole. They are specifically targeted by Mirak's influence, who forces them to build monuments and strip them of their will. The violation of the Skarl's philosophy by a force that operates through compulsion rather than choice is not accidental. 276. Freya, the Scale Shaman's daughter, who joins you in the early portion of the Dragonborn DLC, is steady, purposeful, and calm. She is worried about her people in a way she channels into action rather than paralysis. She is one of the best written secondary companions in the DLC content. 277. Solstheim was a setting in the Morrowind DLC Blood Moon, more than a decade before Skyrim. The island in Dragonborn is the same island. Decades later, the werewolf threat from Blood Moon is gone. The Skarl are still there. The landscape has changed with the volcanic eruption from Red Mountain. The island is a ruin of what it was, and things are still continuing anyway. 278. Raven Rock, the main settlement on Solstheim, was an imperial mining colony. The mine ran dry. The Imperials left. The Dunmer refugees from Morrowind moved in after Red Mountain erupted. The colony that was built for extraction became a home for displaced people. The transition is written into the architecture. You can see where the Imperial structures end and the Dunmer adaptations begin. Councillor Morvain, the leader of Raven Rock, has maintained his position and his people through considerable hardship. He is a thoughtful leader who doesn't have enough resources and knows it. He is grateful for outside help in a way that is genuine rather than performative. 280. Cressius Caerelius is an old man in Raven Rock who insists the mine is not truly exhausted. He is right. He has been dismissed as senile for years. He is right. His wife, Aethia Velothi, has been managing his reputation and their life while he pursues what everyone else thinks is an obsession. She is also right to have believed in him. Beneath Raven Rock's mine is a temple to Mirak. The temple was built while Mirak's influence was active, and the inhabitants of Solstheim were being compelled. Some of them are still working on it. Compelled, slow, unaware of anything else. Freeing them is part of the DLC. The relief on their faces when the compulsion breaks is animated specifically. They look confused, then exhausted, then aware. 282. The All-Maker stones on Solstheim each correspond to a natural phenomenon. The Sunstone, the Earthstone, the Waterstone, and others. They were sacred Skarl sites before Mirak corrupted them. Reclaiming them is part of the DLC's structure. Each reclaimed stone feels like restoring something that should never have been touched. There is a book in the Dragonborn DLC called The Gardener of Men, written by Herma Mora, an older name for Hermaeus Mora. The book describes mortals as crops, grown and tended for the harvest of their knowledge. It is written in a tone of complete sincerity. Hermaeus Mora does not appear to understand why this framing might be objectionable. 284. Hermaeus Mora does not communicate in ways that acknowledge emotional experience. He offers knowledge. He expects loyalty in exchange. He is baffled, or appears baffled, when beings place things above knowledge. The Prince of Knowing Everything understands nothing about what it means to feel something. 285. Neloth, the Dunmer-Telvanni wizard, living on Solstheim, is one of the game's most entertaining supporting characters. He is self-important, technically brilliant, emotionally obtuse, and completely unbothered by any of this. He treats the Dragonborn as a moderately useful research assistant. He conducts dangerous experiments and expects you to assist. Without complaint, he is also, in his fashion, a decent source of information and a reliable ally. He simply requires accepting that he will never acknowledge this. 286. Neloth's steward, Talvas Fathrion, is a young mage trying to learn from Neloth and finding the experience difficult. Neloth forgets Talvas exists for entire quests. Talvas continues working. He seems to understand that this is the price of learning from the best and has decided it is worth it. There is a Dunmer woman on Solstheim named Revis Sarvani who tends a silt strider, a giant insect used for transportation in Morrowind. The silt strider is old and unwell. Rebius has been caring for it and refuses to leave without it. The silt strider cannot make the journey to the mainland. This is not presented as a plot point. It is simply a person who will not abandon an old creature, waiting for something that will not come. 288. There is a dungeon in Dragonborn, called Kolbjorn Barrow, that is funded by a man named Rallis Sedaris. You fund the excavation in stages, and each stage reveals that more workers have died. The pattern is clear if you pay attention. Rallis is always apologetic, always explaining, always asking for more funding. The dungeon is a slow-burn mystery about what's underneath and about who you're enabling. 289. At the end of the Kolbjorn Barrow excavation, what's underneath is a dragon priest named Ahzidal, who was one of the first humans to master the art of enchanting by studying elven secrets and refining them. He is the first human enchanter. His masks enhance magical abilities in specific ways. His story is told in fragments across books, all of which can be found in the Barrow. The dungeon is a biography assembled through exploration. 290. Ahzidal's obsession with power drove him to extremes that changed who he was. The books in the Barrow show the progression. The early entries describe a person motivated by curiosity. The later entries describe someone with narrower and narrower focuses. The final entries do not sound like the same person who wrote the first ones. 291. Rallis Sedaris. After Ahzidal is defeated, he has been complicit in the deaths of many workers, driven by Ahzidal's influence. He doesn't fully claim responsibility. He says he wasn't entirely in control. The game doesn't confirm or deny this. You make the decision with incomplete information. 292. The Dragonborn DLC has a book called Waking Dreams, which describes Solstheim's history and its sacred sites. The book also contains passages that seem to reach forward and backward in time simultaneously. It is unclear whether this is poetic language or something stranger. Hermaeus Mora published it. There are black books on Solstheim. ancient tomes tied to Apocrypha. Reading one transports the reader to Hermaeus Mora's realm. Each black book contains a specific challenge and a specific reward. The challenges are environmental and mechanical. Apocrypha's architecture can be used against you, and its seekers and lurkers are precisely as disturbing as they look. 294. Lurkers, the large creatures in Apocrypha, are implied in Hermaeus Mora's lore to be mortals who sought forbidden knowledge and were transformed by it. The implication is in the design. They have hands that were once human in proportion. They are bipedal. They are huge and wrong. The Prince of Knowledge keeps the people who pursued knowledge too far in his service, transformed into something else. 295. Seekers, the other Apocrypha creature, are described in books as the librarians of Apocrypha. They organize and protect the knowledge stored there. They are aggressive toward intruders. A librarian who attacks those who come without invitation is a consistent image. 296. Mirak's final form, when you fight him, involves Hermaeus Mora killing him before you finish. Mirak's plan involved using the Dragonborn to help him escape Apocrypha. Hermaeus Mora was aware of this plan. He let it proceed until Mirak was no longer useful. Then he intervened. He calls it a betrayal in the sense that it serves his purposes, not Mirak's. He seems entirely comfortable with this. 297. After the fight, Hermaeus Mora offers you Mirak's place as his champion. The offer is casual. You are, from his perspective, already a reasonable upgrade. Your feelings about having just watched Mirak die are not something he inquires about. 298. There is a Solstheim character named Captain Juka, whose ghost can be found at a battlefield called Juka's Monument. He died there centuries ago. The monument is his. He doesn't know he's dead. He is reliving the battle. He asks where his men went. He goes back to watching the field. There is no resolution to him. There is a location on Solstheim called High Point Tower, where a Telvanni wizard named Ildari Sarothril went mad after a magical heart implant experiment conducted by Neloth failed. She is trying to kill Neloth. Neloth is aware of this. He is not particularly alarmed. He did note her death at the time as an unfortunate result. He considers the experiment a partial success because he learned something from it. 300. Ildari's journal, findable in the tower, describes her recovery in terms that are initially clinical and become increasingly erratic. The heart implant gave her power and instability. She does not attribute the instability to the implant for a long time. When she does, the realization comes as a slow, terrible understanding. The journal reads like a person trying to maintain objectivity about a situation that is becoming impossible to observe objectively. 301. In the Hearthfire DLC, the player can build a house. The building system is mechanical, but the result is that you have a home you made in a hold you chose, designed according to your preferences. The house can accommodate a family. Children can be adopted. The contrast between the scale of the Dragonborn's main quest and the domestic activity of building a hall and adopting a child is one of the DLC's central ideas. 302. Adopted children in Hearthfire remember where they came from. They have backstories. Sophie, a flower girl in Windhelm, is an orphan selling flowers to survive. Samuel, an orphan in Honor Hall Orphanage, talks about his parents occasionally. They bring their history into your home. They don't stop being who they were. Honor Hall Orphanage in Riften is run by a woman named Grelod the Kind, who is not kind. She is harsh, cold, and appears to believe that discipline is love. The children in the orphanage pray to the Night Mother to be rescued. One of them has written a letter to the Dark Brotherhood. This is what initiates a Dark Brotherhood quest. The children of Honor Hall are the reason you are contacted. 304. After Grelod is dealt with, a woman named Constance Michelle takes over the orphanage. She has been working there and clearly believes in the children. She is relieved. She starts immediately making things better. She doesn't have much, but she uses it completely. 305. There is a bard in Riften's Inn who will play specific songs on request. Nordic songs have a specific style. They are about battles, about heroes, about Sovngarde. They are not complicated. They are not meant to be. They are meant to be sung loudly in a warm hall by people who are cold and tired and glad to be inside. 306. The Bard's College in Solitude trains people who will then go out and carry these songs to the holds. The songs are a living system of cultural memory. When a bard sings about Shaw's Stone or the Shield Maiden at the inn in Morthal, they are participating in a tradition that goes back generations. The game encodes this in the texture. 307. Morthal is a small hold capital in a swamp. It has a dark atmosphere. The trees are dead. There is a burned house with children's toys scattered around it. A mother and daughter died there. The circumstances are suspicious. A vampire is involved. The hold doesn't appear dramatic. It feels genuinely sad. 308. Idgrod Ravencroft, the Jarl of Morthal, has visions. She describes them plainly, without drama, and seems to use them as a form of governance. She sees things coming before they arrive. The hold's guards think she's odd. She is consistently right. Her visions about the Dragonborn, if you speak to her, are specific in ways that suggest she has already seen how things go. 309. Valian, the court wizard of Morthal, can cure vampirism. He does this for a price, without moral judgment, and without asking how you became infected. He has been studying conjuration and necromancy, and is regarded with suspicion by the villagers. He practices his art at midnight in the marsh. The suspicion seems reasonable if you don't look closer. If you do, he is simply thorough. 310. Dawnstar, the hold capital of the Pale, is a small harbour town. Its inn serves terrible food by reputation. Its citizens are exhausted from nightmares caused by Vermina's influence. The hold itself is cold and sparse. Skald the Elder, its Jarl, is a passionate Stormcloak supporter past the point of reason. 311. Skald is old, has been shouting about the rebellion with decreasing coherence for years. His steward Bulfrek manages around him. When asked about Skald, Bulfrek has the patience of someone who has been managing around a difficult superior for a very long time. 312. There is a lighthouse called the Pale Lighthouse near Dawnstar. It is staffed by a lighthouse keeper who takes his job seriously. The lighthouse is on a coast that ships use. The keeper has been lighting it every night for years. He does not appear in any quest. He simply runs his lighthouse. 313. Windhelm is the oldest city in Skyrim. It was Ysgramor's capital, the Palace of the Kings, where Ulfric holds court, was built by Ysgramor himself. Standing in the throne room means standing in a space built thousands of years ago for the founder of the Nord civilization. The game does not often draw attention to this. It is just there, in the architecture. 314. The Grey Quarter, the section of Windhelm where Dunmer live, is overcrowded and underserved. The Dunmer came to Windhelm as refugees after the Red Mountain eruption. They were allowed to stay but not to integrate. The city's attitude toward them is made explicit in ambient dialogue and in the Butcher quest. Ulfric, who fights for Nord freedom, has done nothing about this. 315. A Dunmer woman named Suvaris Atheron works at the docks near Windhelm. As mentioned earlier, she is under surveillance, but also she is one of the few Dunmer characters in Windhelm who has any kind of working life, who is integrated enough to have a job that isn't in the Grey Quarter. The cost of that integration is the suspicion. 316. The Argonians in Windhelm live at the docks and are not permitted inside the city at all. They work the docks and return to the Argonian assemblage, a building outside the walls. Their leader, Scouts Many Marshes, is trying to negotiate better conditions. The negotiations are not going well. Nisha Dean and Deja are Argonians involved in the Thieves Guild questline as antagonists. They are presented as criminals, but the context of Argonians in Windhelm complicates the moral framework. People locked outside a city who find other means of surviving are not simply criminals in a vacuum. 318. There is a book in Windhelm called Windhelm: A History, or similar, written by a Nord who is enthusiastic about the city's ancient glories and somewhat less detailed about its current social conditions. The gap between the enthusiasm for history and the absence of comment on the present is pointed. The Palace of the Kings has a war room where Ulfric and his advisors plan the rebellion. The maps on the table change as the civil war progresses. The war room is used as a set piece, but also as an administrative centre. If you listen, the conversations happening there are about supply lines and morale as much as battles. 320. Galmar Stonefist, as Ulfric's second, runs the practical side of the rebellion. He is in the war room more often than Ulfric. He is the one who translates Ulfric's vision into operational decisions. Without him, the Stormcloak rebellion would have less structure than it does. There is a Stormcloak officer named Ricky, actually Legate Ricky, on the Imperial side. But the Stormcloaks also have officers who are simply soldiers who rose through the ranks. One of them, Ralof, is from the same village as the player's companion Sven in Riverwood. Small world connections like this are woven through the game in ways most players don't trace. 322. Ralof is the Stormcloak at Helgen who helps the player escape. Hadvar is the Imperial soldier who does the same, if you chose the other path. Both of them survive. Both of them end up at relatives' houses in Riverwood. They came from the same place. They are on opposite sides. The civil war, rendered small, is two people from the same village. 323. There is a horse in Whiterun named Frost, who appears in a Thieves' Guild quest. Frost was bred by a man named Louis Letrush for a specific purpose, and he is trying to get his horse back from Sibby Blackbriar, who is in prison. The quest involves getting the horse. What you do with it afterward is a choice, and different choices have different small consequences for both Letrush and the Blackbriar family. 324. Shadowmere, the Dark Brotherhood's horse, is a black horse with red eyes that will appear after a specific point in the Dark Brotherhood questline. Shadowmere is effectively immortal. She can be killed and will respawn in a pond near the original location of the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary. She has appeared in multiple Elder Scrolls games. She remembers nothing, or she does and doesn't say. 325. Arvak is a skeleton horse, available in the Dawn Guard DLC, summoned through a spell. His soul is in the Soul Cairn, and can be found there. The quest to retrieve his soul is initiated by finding his skull and speaking to his ghost. He doesn't explain how he ended up there. He is simply glad someone came. 326. The horse Frost, Shadowmere, Arvak, and Odarviing are all unique entities in the game's character system. The game treats certain animals with a specificity it does not apply to most unnamed creatures. The named creatures have histories. 327. There are several tombs in Skyrim dedicated to specific figures from history. Most of them contain no person, just the commemoration. A few of them, like Ysgramor's tomb, contain the actual resting place of someone significant. The game distinguishes between the memorial and the place, but doesn't always make the distinction obvious. 328. There is a tomb near Windhelm called Morvunska. Inside, a wizard named Vex, not the Thieves' Guild's Vex, is conducting experiments. The tomb is full of fire Atronax. The wizard's notes suggest he is trying to capture and study them. His results are poor. The Atronax killed most of his assistants. He is still working. 329. The cave called Bethardams is a Dwemer ruin with an unusual layout. It was partially occupied by a group of people called the Afflicted, servants of Periite, the Daedric prince of pestilence and tasks. They are diseased by Periite's blessing and are actively spreading the disease as an act of worship. Their leader is a Nord named Orchunda, who was once a sane person and is now something more complex. 330. Periite's artifact is the Spellbreaker, a shield that creates magical barriers. The Prince of Pestilence gives a tool of protection. This is either irony or a reflection of the idea that the best defense against a plague is to control it, which is essentially what Periite does. He governs the spread of disease, which means he is both its cause and the thing containing it. 331. There is a location called Sunderstone Gorge with a word wall that is accessible only through a dungeon full of flame-wielding mages. The word on the wall is from the shout Fire Breath. The dungeon is populated by people who are already using fire. The word was teaching people to burn before the Dragonborn arrived. 332. There is a waterfall in the Reach that hides a cave behind it. The cave is dry and contains a camp. Nobody is in the camp when you arrive. There are signs that someone left recently. The camp contains food that is still fresh and bedding that is still arranged. The person is simply gone. There is no quest. There is no explanation. There are similar locations across Skyrim. Camps, houses, ships, caves, where the inhabitants are absent without explanation, and the evidence of their lives remains. Some of these connect to quests if you look hard enough, some do not. The game is full of beginnings of stories that aren't developed further, and it never draws attention to this. 334. There is a man named Silas Vesuvius in Dawnstar who runs a museum of mythic Dawn artifacts. The mythic Dawn were the Daedric cult that worshipped Mehrunes Dagon and assassinated the Emperor in the events of Oblivion. Silas is a descendant of a cult member who collected their memorabilia. He is very proud of his museum. He is completely earnest about it. The museum has 3 visitors. The Mehrunes Razor quest, which Silas initiates, requires reassembling the artifact, a dagger that can instantly kill any target. Mehrunes Dagon kills Silas at the end of the quest, regardless of whether you try to protect him. The prince does this casually, as a demonstration. He is not angry. He just preferred to have the dagger and found Silas's continued existence unnecessary. 336. Mehrunes Dagon is the Daedric prince of destruction, ambition. His artifact is a dagger of instant death. His realm is the Deadlands, a hellscape of fire and ruin. He destroyed the Battle Spire, a magical fortress in the lore. He sent his forces to invade Tamriel in the events of Oblivion. He is the Daedric prince most consistently involved in direct catastrophe. His museum exists in Dawnstar. There are 3 visitors. 337. The museum, small and niche and earnest, is one of those details that makes Skyrim's world feel like a real place. Institutions dedicated to the memory of destroyed cults, run by one person, with inadequate funding and insufficient visitors, exist. Of course they do. Of course, Silas Vesuvius runs one. 338. Cherim, the purchasable house in Windhelm, was previously owned by the Butcher. The crime scenes inside it have been partially cleaned up by the time you can buy it, but not completely. You can purchase cleaning supplies. The house, once bought, is yours, and the history of what happened there goes with it. There is a chest outside the entrance to Whiterun that is accessible from the beginning of the game and contains items suited to the player's current level. It is a community-discovered cache that exists for reasons that are technically accidental. The chest belongs to a merchant NPC and is placed where it is due to a pathing decision. It was kept in subsequent versions of the game. It has become tradition. 340. Khajiit caravans travel between the major holds of Skyrim. They are not permitted inside city gates. The reason given is cultural mistrust. Khajiit are associated with thievery and moon sugar, a narcotic substance, and this association has made them unwelcome in Nord cities. The Khajiit traders accept this and work from their camps outside the gates. They do not appear particularly bitter. They are professionals. Risard, the leader of one caravan, has been making this circuit for years. He talks about it with matter-of-fact acceptance. He knows where he stands in the social order. He is making the best business he can within those constraints. He has a clear sense of his own dignity that doesn't depend on the Nords acknowledging it. 342. Madran's caravan, another Khajiit group, travels between Solitude and Windhelm. Madran is quieter than Risard. He talks about the road in a way that suggests he finds the movement itself satisfying. He is a traveling merchant who genuinely likes to travel. 343. The Khajiit homeland, elsewhere, is mentioned in various books in Skyrim. It is a place of deserts and jungle, and large moons, and complex politics. Khajiit appearance varies depending on the phase of the moon at their birth. Skyrim's Khajiit are all of the standard bipedal type, but the books describe varieties that are small as a house cat and large as an ogre, all the same species, all determined by moons. 344. The Argonian people have similarly complex biology. In the lore, their form and personality are influenced by their connection to the Hist, giant sentient trees in their homeland Black Marsh. The Hist called Argonians back to Black Marsh during the Oblivion Crisis, which is why Argonians were not present in large numbers during that conflict. The Hist made a decision. The Argonians obeyed. There is an Argonian in Riften named Wujita who is addicted to skooma, a narcotic. She is in debt to a dealer. The quest to help her is short and mostly involves finding the source of the skooma supply. Wujita herself is grateful, direct about her situation, and seems aware that the help you're providing is the beginning of a longer process. She doesn't pretend recovery is simple. 346. Skooma is brewed from moon sugar and is illegal in most of Skyrim. The trade exists because demand exists. The demand exists because Skyrim has the same conditions that produce drug markets in any context: poverty, lack of opportunity, the attractions of temporary relief. The game models this without moralizing about it. The dealer is not particularly evil. Wujita is not particularly weak. The situation, 347. There is a moon sugar plantation mentioned in books but not visible in the game. The route by which moon sugar enters Skyrim involves Khajiit traders, sometimes, which reinforces the cultural suspicion directed at them, whether or not individual traders are involved. The prejudice and the reality are not symmetrical. 348. There is a small island in the Sea of Ghosts called Japheth's Folly. It is a fortress built on the island by a historical pirate named Red Eagle, who is a different character. No, Japhet was a merchant who believed he could hold off the East Empire Company. His fortress contains records of the siege. His notes become less coherent over time. The island has been untouched since the siege ended. 349. The East Empire Company, the trade organization that appears in Morrowind and Oblivion and has a presence in Skyrim, maintains a warehouse in Solitude. There is a quest line involving their operations. They are not a villainous organization, but they are a powerful one that operates with the particular confidence of institutions that have been large for a long time. 350. There is a book called The Knights of the Nine discuss all the various drinks available at the Neben Bay Inn. This is a joke book. It is a list of fictional drinks. Several of the drinks have names that are parodies of in-universe concepts. The book was written by developers who needed content and apparently decided to have fun. It is findable in multiple locations and serves no quest purpose. 351. There are several books in Skyrim that are joke books, children's books, collections of poetry, or comedic essays. They are distributed throughout the world alongside serious theological texts and historical records. The mix communicates that this is a world where people read for entertainment as well as instruction. 352. There is a book called The Annotated Annuad that describes the creation of the universe in Elder Scrolls cosmology. It is a simplified version of a complex doctrine. The annotation notes where the original is considered controversial. It is a theology textbook with editorial comments, which is very much how theology textbooks actually work. The Elder Scrolls themselves, the artifacts the series is named after, appear in the main quest of Skyrim. One is used to read the ancient prophecy about Alduin. The scrolls are described as artifacts outside of time, written by beings or forces that have no equivalent in mortal experience. Looking into one destroys the eyesight of anyone not sufficiently prepared. The game models this. If you read the Elder Scroll at the wrong time, your screen whites out and your character is described as temporarily blinded. 354. The Moth Priests, a religious order trained for years to read the scrolls. The training involves becoming gradually blind through exposure to lesser scrolls, so that the final blindness caused by the Elder Scroll itself is a stage in a deliberate process, rather than sudden damage. Septimus Cygnus mentions this obliquely. The scholar Urag Gro-Shub at the college knows more about them. 355. Septimus Cygnus is a scholar who went too far into his research and ended up as the game's most extreme example of academic obsession. He lives in an ice cavern alone. He has been alone for years. He has been studying a Dwemer artifact he cannot open. He believes there is something inside it. He is not wrong. What is inside it is relevant to Hermaeus Mora, which is how you meet Mora in the main game. 356. Septimus's madness is gentle. He is not aggressive. He is simply no longer operating in the same register as normal conversation. He responds to things slightly off. He is preoccupied with something he cannot reach. He treats you as a useful instrument without malice. When his role in the story is complete, Hermaeus Mora takes him. There is no ceremony. He is simply gone. 357. Urag Gro-Shub, the librarian of the Arcanium at the College of Winterhold, is an orc who has been there for decades. He is protective of the books. He is suspicious of people who handle them carelessly. He is exactly the person you want running a library that contains material this dangerous. When you bring him books from outside the college, he receives them with the genuine satisfaction of someone who loves what they do. 358. There are books in the Arcanium that cannot be borrowed. Urag is clear about this. Some of the restricted books contain information that should not leave the building. Whether Urag's judgment about which books those are is always correct is not confirmed, but his protectiveness suggests he has thought carefully about each one. Mirabelle Irvine, the master wizard of the college and Aaron's second-in-command, manages the practical operations of the institution. She is competent, slightly harried, and realistic about the college's limitations, in a way that Aaron is not. She is killed in the college questline during the Eye of Magnus crisis. Her death goes quickly. It is abrupt. The college barely has time to acknowledge it. 360. Tolfdir, the elderly teacher at the college, is the character who introduces the player to magic instruction. He is gentle, patient, and experienced. He has been teaching for a long time. When the crisis at the college develops, he participates in it directly. Despite being a teacher rather than an adventurer, he is the kind of person who does what is needed when it is needed, without fuss. 361. Jazago, the Khajiit student at the college, has genuine ambition. He wants to be the most powerful mage in the world. He says this openly and without embarrassment. He is already very good. He is aware of this too. He has a particular test involving flame cloak scrolls that goes badly. He is embarrassed about this in a specific, controlled way. He wants your opinion on his work and uses it as data. 362. Berliner Marion, the Dunmer student, is quieter and more focused than Jazago. She experiments on you accidentally, which is uncomfortable, and she is genuinely apologetic afterward. She is from a powerful Dunmer family and carries that history with some weight. She seems to find the college both a relief from that weight and a place where it still matters. 363. Onmund, the Nord student, is unusual simply by being a Nord at the college. Many Nords distrust magic. Onmund's family was unhappy when he left to study it. He carries that disapproval with him and is working out whether the choice was right. He knows it was right. He is not entirely sure his family will agree. 364. These three students, Jazago, Brelina, and Onmund, can all become followers after their personal quests are complete. They have specific follower dialogue. They react to the college, to Skyrim, to the player's choices. They are more fully realized than many characters with considerably larger roles. There is a location called Ironbind Barrow, where a follower named Salma explores alongside you. She is an adventurer you meet at the entrance. who suggests exploring together. She has her own motivations. The dungeon concludes with the decision moment involving her companion Beam Jar. The game creates a small, complete story within the dungeon. Characters, a twist, a resolution, without a quest marker. 366. Beamya, Salma's companion at Ironbind Barrow, reveals himself to be treacherous at the dungeon's conclusion. He has been using Salma to access what's inside. Salma does not see it coming. The reveal is written into the character's dialogue if you pay attention. Beamja is slightly off throughout the dungeon. Salma trusts him anyway. 367. There is a dungeon called Frostmere Crypt, with a complete self-contained mystery. A group of bandits found something in the crypt, and something went wrong. The remaining bandits are scattered and frightened. Notes describe the progression of events. A boss is at the center of it. The dungeon works as a short story. 368. Frostmere Crypt has a creature called the Pale Lady at its center. She is not explained by the game. The notes in the crypt suggest she has been there for a long time and was dormant until disturbed. She attacks because she was disturbed. She is not a villain in any meaningful sense. She is something ancient that woke up. There is a giant's camp called Secunda's Kiss. The name contains the moon name Secunda, one of Skyrim's 2 moons, giant's camp, under open sky, by preference. The naming of a camp after a moon suggests either that the giants named it themselves or that travelers named it observationally. Either way, the giant's relationship with the sky is in the name. 370. Mammoths in Skyrim are associated with the constellation Arce's Arrow. In some traditions, they are enormous creatures that move in set patterns, predictable and seasonal. Hunters who study mammoths can predict their routes. The giants who herd them understand this in ways that travelers don't. 371. There is a hunting camp near a frozen waterfall in the rift called Froki's Shack. Froki is an old hunter who practices the old Nordic tradition of worshipping Kynaruth under the name Kyn. He has a grandson named Harming, the same child who escaped Helgen at the beginning of the game. Haming is living with his grandfather now. Froki is teaching him to hunt. The child who ran from a dragon is learning to be a hunter in the forest. The game does not annotate the connection. You find it. 372. Haming's story begins at Helgen, continues at Riverwood briefly if you chose Hadvar's path, and continues again at Froki's Shack. He is a child who lost his parents to the dragon attack and is now being raised by his grandfather. The story is told across 3 locations with no quest marker connecting them. 373. Froki's quests, Kyn's sacred trials, involve hunting specific animals as offerings to Kyn. The trials are about the relationship between the hunter and the hunted, the idea that killing an animal well, cleanly, with respect, is a form of worship. It is one of the few quest lines in the game built around a philosophy, rather than a conflict. 374. Kyn is the widow of Shor. In Nordic mythology, she wept at Shor's death, and her tears became rain. She is the goddess of the wind and sky, and is considered the mother goddess of the Nordic people. Praying to her at a shrine in Skyrim gives a bonus in combat with animals. The mechanic encodes the theology. 375. There is a shrine to Talos in the wilderness near Helgen that appears to be actively maintained. Flowers have been placed on it recently. This is notable because Talos worship is illegal. Someone is maintaining this shrine in the forest, away from settlements, where no Thalmor will see it. The detail is environmental storytelling in miniature. 376. Talos shrines in Skyrim range from elaborate city shrines that have been hidden to simple stones in the wilderness. Each one is a degree of risk. The person who left flowers at the wilderness shrine took a specific kind of risk. Careful, but present. 377. There is a Thalmor patrol that can be encountered executing a Talos worshipper on a road in Skyrim. The execution is casual. The justiciar conducting it seems bored. The worshipper says nothing visible in the encounter. The encounter is over quickly. The game makes no comment The player walks past it or does not. 378. If you intervene and kill the Thalmor patrol, you receive no reward and no consequence within the quest system. The worshipper, if he survived, may simply walk away without much to say. The intervention is its own thing, within the fiction. It requires no mechanical justification. Onderlemar is a Thalmor justiciar, stationed at Understone Keep in Markarth. He is polished, superior, and clearly bored by the posting. He views Markarth as provincial. He views Nords as crude. He manages this with practiced condescension. He is exactly the character type that works best in a role that gives him power and no outlet for ambition. 380. There is a woman in Markarth named Bethella who runs the Hag's Cure Apothecary. She is old, knowledgeable, and entirely unbothered by the reputation that comes with the shop's name. She knows what she sells and who needs it. She has a young apprentice named Muiri, who has a complicated past involving a former lover and the Dark Brotherhood. Muiri's quest, if she becomes an acquaintance, involves hiring the Dark Brotherhood to kill the person who wronged her and the people she holds responsible. Her grievance is legitimate. The actions she requests are extreme. When the contracts are fulfilled, she seems partially satisfied and partially aware that the satisfaction is incomplete. 382. There is an alchemist in Solitude named Angeline Morard who operates Angeline's Aromatics. She has a daughter serving in the Imperial Army. She asks you to check on her daughter. If you're headed east, partway through the game, a letter arrives. Her daughter is dead. Angeline continues to run her shop. She is quieter afterward. 383. The small moments of grief in Skyrim are more effective than the large ones because the game doesn't linger. Angeline doesn't stop you for a long scene. She is just quieter. Froki doesn't explain Haming's backstory when you arrive. You read it in context. The compression is the technique. 384. There is a woman in Whiterun named Solda who wants to be a merchant and is working toward that goal by learning from the Khajiit traders. She is saving to buy the Bannered Mare Inn. Her plan is specific and long-term. She seems to have thought about it. She is one of the characters most actively working towards something personal and non-combat related. 385. Isolde requires a mammoth tusk for one of her learning trades with the Khajiit. Mammoth tusks are difficult to acquire without fighting giants or mammoths. The item requirement is a small note on the economic realities of Skyrim. The goods the Khajiit trade in are not easily obtained by city dwellers. 386. There is a carriage system in Skyrim that allows fast travel between the major hold capitals. The drivers have specific dialogue. They know the roads. They know which routes are dangerous. They prefer some routes to others. They have opinions about the Civil War, about their horses. They are taxi drivers with law. 387. There is a specific carriage driver outside Whiterun, named Bjorlum, who has been driving that route for years. He mentions having a family once. He seems comfortable with the work. He does not appear to want more than what he has, which in Skyrim's context of world-ending threats makes him one of the more contented characters in the game. 388. The rivers of Skyrim are navigable by salmon. Salmon jump upstream in the rivers of Skyrim's forests. They can be caught by hand, by arrow, or by bear. Bears fish for salmon in specific locations. The ecosystem functions independently of the player. 389. There are bears that fish at specific locations in Skyrim. If you watch them, they succeed sometimes and fail sometimes. The fish escape sometimes. The behavior is animated specifically. Nobody told the player to watch this. It is simply there. 390. Deer in Skyrim flee when approached. They flee in specific directions related to the terrain. They don't flee into walls. Their pathing is considered. They were programmed to behave like prey animals. When a deer runs from the player in a forest, the forest briefly feels like a place where something lives. 391. There is a fox in Skyrim that runs towards treasure. If you follow a fox, it may lead you to a chest. This is not announced anywhere in the game. Players discovered it through observation. It is apparently intentional. 392. The horses in Skyrim will charge through enemies to follow the player and will try to walk up mountains at implausible angles. The latter is a persistent joke about horse physics, but the former, the loyalty, is a specific programmed behavior. Horses that belong to the player treat the player's safety as something to move toward. 393. There is a mud crab near the Apprentice Stone on a coast who carries a small amount of gold. This is a reference to the legendary rich mud crab merchant from Morrowind, a joke character who would buy items at fair prices from any location. The mud crab in Skyrim cannot be spoken to. He simply has gold. The reference requires knowing the original. 394. There is a bucket in Dragon's Reach, the Jarl's Palace in Whiterun, that can be placed on an NPC's head to block their field of vision, allowing theft from right in front of them. This is a game mechanic. The bucket works because the NPC's awareness is dependent on their visible field. Every guard in every building is vulnerable to this. It is completely ridiculous, and the developers left it in. 395. There are chickens in Whiterun and other settlements. Harming a chicken is a crime. The guards will respond to chicken killing. This is technically because chickens are owned property, but the enforcement creates the impression of a society in which chickens are protected more reliably than some people. The community noticed this immediately. 396. There is a shop in Riften called the Blackbriar Meadery, which sells Blackbriar mead. The mead is available for purchase throughout Skyrim and is described as the most popular mead in the holds. The Blackbriar family's economic dominance is not simply asserted, it is expressed in the distribution of a product. Wherever you go in Skyrim, you can find Blackbriar mead. 397. There is a note on a body in a dungeon that reads, "The treasure is under thee," and ends there. The note is not attached to a quest. The treasure is not findable through the note. The body, presumably, knew where the sentence ended. The moment is comedy and mystery in equal measure. 398. There is a location called Pine Peak Cavern with a family of bears. One bear is named Kogi's Bear in the game files. This name does not appear anywhere in the game itself. The developer who named the bear apparently named him for personal reasons. He does not know this. He is simply a bear. The Riften fishery on the lake employs several workers who can be spoken to about their lives. One of them, a woman named Wujita mentioned earlier, has the skooma addiction storyline. Another, a man named Bolly, is married and has a comfortable life and seems genuinely happy with it. The contrast between characters in the same location with completely different inner lives is part of what makes the city feel full. 400. Bolly's wife, Nivanor, is described in ambient dialogue as being somewhat difficult. She is demanding. Bolly seems to have arranged his life around managing her. He does not appear unhappy. Exactly. He has made his accommodations. 401. There is a smith in Riften named Balymund who has his own set of requirements for heating his forge. He uses fire salts, volcanic components that burn hotter than regular fuel. He wants you to bring him fire salts. When you do, he is grateful in the specific way of a craftsman who has been working without the right materials. 402. There is a quest in Riften involving a man named Brandshay, who is, if you remember, framed by the Dark Brotherhood quest. Before that, he can be spoken to about his origins. He does not know who his family was. He was raised without that knowledge. He has been searching. The search gives him something to do. In the absence of an answer, the Ratway beneath Riften is where the Thieves' Guild operates. It is a network of passages beneath the city. It is inhabited not only by guild members, but by people who live in the sewers by necessity. Criminals, the desperate, the forgotten. The Ratway is Riften's social stratification expressed vertically. 404. Gian the Fist, a bandit in the Ratway, uses unarmed combat. He is skilled enough that he is dangerous without a weapon. He is memorable in a game where most combat is weapon or magic based. His presence in the ratway suggests a person who specialized in something specific, because it was all he had. The companions' long history is encoded in the building they occupy, Jorvaska, which is allegedly built around the hull of the boat that brought Iskramor to Skyrim. The boat was inverted and used as the initial shelter. The current building grew around it. The oldest part of the building is the boat. You can see the architecture that preserves this claim. 406. There is a room in Jorvaska called the Underforge, beneath the main building, where the werewolf ritual takes place. It is cold, stone, secret. The contrast with the warm mead hall above it communicates everything about the companions' dual nature. 407. The mead hall culture of the companions, communal eating, shared stories, physical excellence, is explicitly modelled on historical Norse traditions. The developers used historical research to inform the culture of the in-game Nords. The result is that Jorvaska feels like a specific cultural institution rather than a generic fantasy building. 408. Tilma, the elderly woman who cleans Jorvaska, has been there for decades. She is not a companion. She is the housekeeper. She is treated with respect by the companions, who apparently understand that the building's functioning depends on her. She does not fight. She does not go on quests. She tends the hall. 409. There is a horse at Whiterun's stables named Ali, belonging to the stable master. Ali is not a war horse or a special named horse. She is simply the stable master's horse. She has a name. The stable master mentions her. The detail is small. 410. The stables outside Whiterun employ several workers who talk about the road conditions and the civil war in the way of people whose work depends on roads being safe. For them, the political conflict is directly economic. A Stormcloak ambush means a trade route is less safe. They think about this concretely. There is a Nord named Vignar Greymane in Whiterun, who is the eldest member of the Greymane family. He is old enough to have perspective on everything: the civil war, the tension with the Battleborns, the current state of the holds. He is not a quest giver in most cases. He simply talks if you engage him. He has lived long enough to know that most things are complicated. 412. There is an old woman named Freya Greymane, who sells jewelry in Whiterun's market, and who is quietly frantic about her missing son Thorald. She maintains the market stall. She does the ordinary thing. The ordinary thing is the cover for how frightened she is. When you help her, her relief is specific. 413. Hulda, the innkeeper at the Bannered Mare in Whiterun, manages one of the social centres of the city. People come for news, food, company, and drink. She knows everyone's business. She is discreet about most of it. She notices the player. 414. Sadia is a woman at the Bannered Mare with a secret. She is being hunted. There is a quest involving whether to believe her account of events or the account of the men hunting her. Both accounts are plausible. The game does not confirm which is true. One possible reading is that the game is deliberately constructed so that both outcomes can be justified within the available information. Kematu, the leader of the hunters looking for Sadia, presents a coherent case. He is not a villain by presentation. He is a Redguard who believes he is recovering a traitor. If he is right, helping Sadia is protecting someone who caused significant harm. If Sadia is right, helping Kematu is delivering an innocent person. The game gives you one choice and does not show you the consequences of the unchosen path. 416. There are Alakar warriors posted around Skyrim's hold capitals looking for this woman. They were refused entry to most cities. They camp outside. They are not aggressive. They are simply working. The job they're doing may or may not be just. They don't know for certain either. 417. There is a blacksmith in Riverwood named Alvor, who is Hadvar's uncle. If you came to Riverwood with Hadvar from Helgen, Alvor shelters you and gives you starting equipment. He is an ordinary man doing an ordinary job who is caught in events beyond his control. With a nephew involved in a war, he handles it practically. 418. Sigrid, Alvor's wife, is skeptical of the player's arrival and everything associated with Helgen. She is protective of her family in a specific grounded way. She warms, eventually, once the situation is clearer. She does not pretend she wasn't uncertain. 419. Dorfe, their daughter, wants to be a blacksmith when she grows up. She already helps at the forge. She asks questions about smithing with genuine interest. She is a child with a specific ambition and a parent who is teaching her toward it. 420. There is a mill in Riverwood run by Hode and Gerda. Gerda is Ralof's sister. If you came to Riverwood with Ralof from Helgen, Gerda shelters you and makes arrangements. She is Stormcloak by family loyalty and by principle. She does not perform this, she simply is it. 421. The mill in Riverwood produces the lumber that Whiterun's economy depends on. The supply chain between the mill and the city is mentioned in ambient dialogue. Whiterun's prosperity is partly built on Riverwood's production. The small village and the large city are economically linked in ways that don't require a quest to establish. 422. Embry, the drunk in Riverwood who is always sitting outside the Sleeping Giant Inn, is not a named character of great significance. He is a person who has settled into a comfortable version of a bad habit. He talks a little. He is not unpleasant. He is simply there, every day, outside the inn. And the inn doesn't ask him to leave. 423. Camilla Valerius, the woman at the centre of the Feindal Sven competition, has a brother Lucan who owns the Riverwood Trader and is focused on recovering the Golden Claw. After the claw is returned, Lucan and Camilla continue to run the shop. Life resumes. The small community of Riverwood absorbs events and continues. 424. Anoriath, a Bosma hunter in Whiterun, runs a stall selling game meat. He hunts himself rather than buying from others. He is particular about it. He knows what he hunted, when, how. He is another craftsman who takes the whole process seriously. 425. Carlotta Valentia runs a produce stand in Whiterun and has a daughter named Mila. Mila follows her mother around the market and asks questions about everything. Carlotta is raising her daughter in the marketplace. As a single parent, she mentions her situation occasionally, without dwelling on it. Mila is curious and cheerful and comfortable. 426. There is a character named Heimska in Whiterun who stands in the market and preaches about Talos, loudly, constantly. This is illegal under the Concordat. Whiterun's guards ignore him. The Thalmor don't operate in Whiterun with enough presence to address him. Heimskript simply shouts about Talos every day, and nothing happens to him. He is the loudest act of civil disobedience in the game. Heimskra's sermons are, if listened to, actually theologically consistent with what the game establishes about Talos. He is not rambling, he is making an argument. The argument is passionate and specific. Most players tune it out as ambient noise. 428. Talos shrines in Whiterun exist in certain locations that are easy to miss. The city that ignores Heimskrit also contains shrines to the god he preaches about. The de facto tolerance in Whiterun is different from the legal situation. Balgruf governs by the letter of enough law to avoid imperial intervention while allowing more than the Concordat technically permits. 429. The Temple of Kainarath in Whiterun is maintained by a healer named Danica Purespring. She is serious about her faith and her work. There is an associated quest involving the Gildergreen, a sacred tree in the city's wind district, that has been damaged. The tree is sacred, healing it matters to Danica in a way that goes beyond the practical. 430. The Gildergreen is one of Skyrim's more subtle environmental elements. A large, clearly prominent tree in the centre of Whiterun that is clearly not healthy. If you complete the associated quest, the tree's condition changes. Most players see this, and most players notice. The quest communicates through the environment. There is an inn in Ivarstead called the Vilmir Inn, at the base of the 7,000 steps. Travellers rest there before the climb. The innkeeper, Wilhelm, has a ghost problem that forms a short quest. The ghost is local. The problem is local. The scale is appropriate to the location. 432. Ivarstead is a small farming village in the Rift. Its economy depends partly on the pilgrimage route to High Hrothgar. Pilgrims stop. They need food and rest. Without the pilgrimage, Ivarstead would be even smaller. The mountain is an economic partner as much as a spiritual landmark. 430. There is a Nord named Temba Widearm in Ivarstead who hates bears. She has had too many encounters with them. She wants bear pelts. Her animosity toward bears is personal and specific and slightly disproportionate, which is why it's memorable. 434. Klimek is an Ivarstead resident who regularly supplies food to the Greybeards by carrying it up the 7,000 steps. He does this as a service, regularly as part of the community's relationship with the monastery. He is not a companion or a warrior. He is just a person who carries food up a mountain for monks because someone has to. When you first climb the 7,000 steps, you can encounter Klimek and carry his supplies for him. The supplies arrive at High Hrothgar and are placed in a chest the Greybeards apparently know to check. The arrangement between the village and the monastery is informal and functional and has presumably been going on for generations. 436. There is a watermill at Ivarstead next to the bridge. A man named Bassianus Axius lives there with a woman named Fastrid. Fastrid wants to leave Ivarstead. Bassianus doesn't. Her father wants her to stay. The quest is about whether love is reason enough to uproot a life. The game doesn't resolve whether any choice is right. 437. There is a man named Jofthor in Ivarstead, Fastred's father, who is quietly desperate for his daughter not to leave. He frames his desire in practical terms. The village needs young people. The journey to the city is dangerous, but the desperation is personal. He is an aging parent, watching his child consider leaving. 438. The Rift as a hold has an autumn atmosphere. The trees are orange and yellow even in summer. The colour palette of the Rift is distinct from the other holds. Whiterun is golden and green. The Reach is grey and red. Winterhold is white and blue. Each hold has a visual identity that communicates mood. 439. Falkreath's forests are dark green and dense. The trees are old, the understory is thick. Moving through Falkreath feels different from moving through the Rift. The visual design encodes the hold's character. Old, green, close, associated with death. 440. Hafengar, the hold containing solitude, has dramatic coastal geography. Cliffs, arches, and the narrow finger of land the city is built on. The name Hafengar means high finger in Old Norse equivalents. The geography and the name match. 441. There is a location called Lost Echo Cave in Hafengar with a word wall. The cave is entirely underwater. Breathing underwater requires magic or a potion. The game placed a reward accessible only to players who prepared for it. 442. There is a location called Brine Water Grotto in Hafengar that is the base of operations for a group of smugglers. The smugglers are using an East Empire Company warehouse nearby as cover for their operation. The crime and the legitimate business are adjacent in both space and structure. 443. There is a man named Erikur in Solitude who is on the city's Thane Council and is corrupt in specific ways. He wants you to do a job for him that involves compromising someone's business. He is unconcerned about this. He is accustomed to people doing what he wants. When things don't go his way, he adjusts his expectations without much difficulty. 444. There is an East Empire Company pendant that can be collected for a Thieves Guild job. The item is small. The job is routine. But the pendant's existence in a lockbox somewhere in a warehouse suggests a history. Someone wore it. It meant something. It ended up in a box. The guild doesn't care. The game noted it anyway. 445. There is a ghost named Ruki who appears on a ridge above Riften. Searching for her husband Fenrig, Fenrig's ghost appears nearby, searching for Ruki. They are on adjacent ridges. looking in opposite directions, and they have been for what appears to be a long time. When you guide one to the other, they reunite briefly and fade together. The quest has no marker. Finding it requires walking where most players don't. The Golden Glow Estate, a bee farm controlled by Maven Blackbriar, is the first major Thieves Guild operation location. Bees are farmed for honey. The honey is turned into mead. The mead is sold by Blackbriar Meadery. The vertical integration of this operation, bees to mead to distribution, is more economically sophisticated than most fictional criminal enterprises. 447. The Thieves Guild has a system of jobs that can be completed between main quest missions. These involve smaller thefts and assignments across Skyrim's holds. Each job type has a name: burglaries, falsifications, larcenies. The naming is professional. The guild is a business. 448. Delvin Mallory, the guild's fence and fixer, has a history that comes up in optional dialogue. He used to be active in the field. He runs the back office now. He is comfortable with this transition and seems aware that his skills are still being used, just differently. 449. Vex, the guild's expert thief, is sharper in interactions than Delvin. She gives jobs without small talk. She doesn't elaborate unless pressed. When she does elaborate, she is precise. She has clearly been doing this long enough to have no interest in anything but the work. 450. Brynjolf, who recruits the player into the guild, is a con man by training. He sells fake elixirs in Riften's market as his cover. When he is engaged beyond the sales pitch, he is considerably more genuine. He cares about the guild more than he admits in the recruitment pitch. 451. Mercer Frey, the guild master and ultimate antagonist of the Thieves Guild questline, stole from the guild gradually over a long period. Nobody noticed, because he was the one who would have noticed. He exploited the institutional blind spot created by his own role. He also betrayed the Nightingale Oath, which has consequences the game implies are not purely social. When Mercer is confronted in Erkstrength and a Dwemer ruin, he has just taken the eyes of the Falmer, enormous emeralds placed in the statue of a Falmer god. He is removing them when you find him. The setting: a Dwemer ruin, a Falmer idol, a thief stealing from the blind, has a certain allegorical dimension that may or may not be intentional. 453. The eyes of the Falmer are returned to the guild after Mercer's defeat. They are described as priceless. They are placed in the cistern, the guild's base. They don't improve anything. They are beautiful. Someone thought that was reason enough to keep them. 454. There is a memorial plaque on the wall near the end of the Thieves Guild questline that changes after you complete it. Your name is added. The guild has a tradition of marking achievement in stone. You can find it if you look. 455. There is a dungeon called Ansilvund, where a man named Lua Alskaven raised an army of Draugr to take revenge on Skyrim's people for not sending aid when her husband died in the Great War. She has been doing this for years. Her grief has become a project. The dungeon is the project's physical form. Her husband, when raised by her and confronted, says he never wanted this. 456. The husband's ghost, upon being freed from her control, expresses exhaustion. He has been weaponized by someone who loves him. The weaponization and the love are not separate things in Lua's experience. He is gone when the fight is over. She is also gone. The dungeon is empty. There is a book called The Nirnut Missive that relates to a quest involving a plant called Nirnut, a glowing plant that grows near water and makes a distinctive chiming sound. A scholar named Sindarion spent his life studying it. He is dead by the time of Skyrim. His journal is in Blackreach. He found what he was looking for. At the end. 458. Nirnut appears throughout Skyrim near water sources. You can hear it before you see it. The chiming is quiet. Players who recognize the sound look toward water. It is one of the few collectible plants in the game with its own audio signature. 459. There is a quest called Unearthed in the Dragonborn DLC involving the Colbjorn Barrow excavation mentioned earlier. Between excavation stages, the player can speak to Rallis about the progress. The conversations are short and informative. They also, if you pay attention, track a change in Rallis's behavior that accelerates as the excavation progresses, and as Idal's influence grows. 460. Rallis's final journal entry, findable in the dungeon, describes his feeling that something was guiding him. He frames it passively. Something happened to him. He was acted upon. Whether this is true or whether the journal is the rationalization of someone who made choices he'd prefer not to own is something the game does not resolve. 461. There is a horse outside Whiterun that is always at the stables. If you buy a horse, it is the same horse in the stables when you return. The game has one horse model at Whiterun stables at any given time. The implication that this specific horse is always available is mechanical necessity, but it reads as the stable master having one reliable horse. 462. There are mammoth bones near the area where mammoths have historically been. In older locations where mammoth populations have declined within the game's history, the bones are more prevalent. This is environmental storytelling in an ecological register. 463. The volcanic tundra of Eastmarch, the hold around Windhelm, has hot springs. The hot springs are not quest locations. They are not marked. They are simply warm water in a cold landscape, and animals gather near them. Elk stand in the warm water. It is calm. 464. There is a rock formation near Winterhold that resembles, at certain angles, a sleeping giant. There is no quest associated with it. It is not named. The resemblance is either intentional or accidental. The game does not say. 465. There is a location near Solitude called Pina Moon Cave that contains vampires. The vampires in the cave have set up a small domestic space. There is furniture, a fire, preserved food. They are living there in the way that creatures with long lifespans arrange their circumstances. The cave is their home. 466. There is a vampire lair under a lighthouse on the northern coast. The lighthouse is operational. The light turns. The lighthouse keeper is no longer alive. The vampires have maintained his function, presumably because a lighthouse that stops working attracts attention. The vampires have made a practical decision that incidentally continues to serve ships at sea. 467. Dim Hollow Crypt, the large ruin at the centre of the early Dawnguard questline, has been the target of multiple expeditions before the player arrives. Vampires got there first. The evidence of their work, bodies of scholars, their notes, the path they cleared, is what guides the player through the beginning of the dungeon. 468. The sphere in Dim Hollow Crypt that holds Serana is a vessel activated by blood. Blood is required to open it. The requirement encodes the Dawnguard DLC's central motif, blood and lineage, and the cost of power, into its first major puzzle. 469. Serana's emergence from the sphere is one of the DLC's best moments. She is disoriented, not fully awake, in a place that should feel familiar and doesn't, because time has passed. She doesn't know how much time. Her first questions are careful. She is assessing the situation before committing to a response. 470. She mentions that she can see you are not a vampire when you encounter her, and states it as an observation rather than a judgment. Her social calibration starts immediately. She is not naive. She has been somewhere, for a long time, with a specific kind of knowledge, and no place to apply it. She applies it immediately. 471. There is a book in Volkiar Castle called Immortal Blood, which is a vampire's meditation on what immortality means. It is not triumphant. It is reflective. The author has had a long time to think about it. What they conclude is not a recommendation. 472. Volkihar Castle is on an island in the Sea of Ghosts. Reaching it requires a boat journey. The isolation is literal and intentional. A vampire court that values secrecy has built its home in the most inaccessible part of Skyrim. 473. The interior of Volkiar Castle is enormous. The rooms suggest a population that used to be larger. Some halls are unused. Some doors lead nowhere functional. The castle was built for more people than currently live in it. The emptiness is part of the atmosphere. 474. There are vampire thralls in Volkiar Castle who perform the functions of servants. They are not fully aware. They do their jobs. They respond to orders. A castle full of near-mindless servants is a specific image of power that does not value the consciousness of those it employs. 475. Vingalmo and Orthjolf are two vampires in Harkon's court who are plotting against each other. Their scheming is ambient. They don't involve the player in it directly. They are simply two ancient beings with too much time and too much ambition in a court that cannot fully satisfy them. The scheming is the pastime of the very old. 476. Garan Marathi, Harkon's court advisor, is the most measured figure in the castle. He is old, considered, and maintains his role through usefulness rather than politics. He gives good counsel. He seems aware that good counsel has limited influence in a court run by ambition. 477. There is an alchemist at Volkihar named Ferran Sadri who maintains a collection of unusual poisons and ingredients. He is practical and slightly cheerful. He treats the work of supplying a vampire court with the attitude of a pharmacist. He has whatever you need, or close to it. 478. The moth priest, Dexion Evicus, encountered in the Dawnguard main quest, reads an elder scroll you bring him. The reading requires specific preparation. He goes through it professionally, methodically, and then explains what the scroll contained with the careful phrasing of someone who has done this before and is aware of the weight of what he's saying. 479. If Dexion is captured by vampires and turned into a thrall, he is rendered unable to read the scroll. You must read it yourself with preparation from Jelabor. Jelabor explains what the preparation involves. The preparation involves spending time with the moth priest's traditional method, standing in a specific kind of darkness and letting your eyes adjust in a way that normal vision does not. The preparation is more meditation than medicine. 480. There is a cave in the Reach called Karthspire where the Forsworn guard the path to Skyhaven Temple. The temple was built by the ancient Blades as a place to study the Akaviri Dragon Scout prophecy. The floor of the temple depicts Alduin's Wall, a carving that tells the story of the ancient war with dragons and how they were defeated. Reading the wall is the purpose of the expedition. The wall answers the question of how to stop Alduin. It requires looking at something very old to understand something very current. 481. Alduin's Wall in Skyhaven Temple is one of the most visually striking locations in the game. The carving is enormous and covers the floor of the main chamber. Walking across it feels like reading. The game designed it to be navigated on foot, so you cross the story as you move through it. Esbern, when he sees the wall, experiences something that reads as vindication and awe simultaneously. He has been working toward this for decades. He has known there was an answer somewhere. When he finds it, he is quietly overwhelmed. He stays professional. He explains it. He does not linger on how it feels. 483. The answer on Alduin's Wall is the shout Dragonrend, which was created by the ancient tongues, mortal humans who were not dragonborn, but who still mastered the voice. The shout encodes the concept of mortality into a word of power. It forces a dragon to experience what it means to be mortal. Dragons are immortal by nature. The concept is foreign to them. The shout is not a weapon so much as a perspective forced onto an enemy. 484. To learn Dragonrend, you must travel back in time to the moment it was created. This is done through the use of an Elder Scroll at the throat of the world. The time travel sequence is brief and quiet. You are an observer. The ancient tongues speak the words that will eventually save the world. They don't know you're watching. 485. The tongues in the past cannot hear you. You cannot interact with them. You are a ghost in their time. Alduin appears in the past and is defeated using Dragonrend and then banished forward in time, which is why he arrived in the present at Helgen at the start of the game. The circle of the story closes at the place it began. 486. Helgen, the location of the game's opening, can be revisited after the beginning. It is a ruin. The dragon attack left it burned and broken. NPCs who pass near it comment on what happened. Nobody has rebuilt it. It is simply there, a scar on the beginning of the map. 487. There is a location called Fort Neugrad in Falkreath that was once an imperial fort and has been taken by bandits. The fort's original purpose, maintaining order in the hold, is gone. The building continues. Empty institutions hold their architecture longer than their function. 488. There are many forts in Skyrim that have been abandoned by the military and occupied by bandits. Each one has the architecture of its original function. Watchtowers, barracks, armories. The current occupants use the same rooms differently. The transformation is written in the items on the shelves and the fires in the hearths. 489. There is a Nordic ruin called Volunrud that contains the tomb of a long-dead tongue named Cavenel. He carries two weapons, Okin and Edu, which are named swords. The names mean brave and honor in Old Norse equivalents. A man named for his virtues, buried with weapons that express them, available for someone else to use. The weapons have a history that matters and a function that continues. 490. There is a small dungeon near Falkreath called Cracked Tusk Keep. A group of orcs lives there. In the vault at the back is the Rueful Axe, an artifact connected to Clavicus Vial. The orc chief holds the key. He got it from somewhere and kept it. The chain of possession for the axe before the orc acquired it is not explained. Things end up in people's hands through paths the game doesn't always trace. 491. Clavicus Vial's Rueful Axe quest, as mentioned, ends with a choice between the axe and the mask. The mask grants power, the axe is given in exchange for killing Barbas. Giving up Barbas for power is a bad trade in almost every sense, and the game structures the rewards to make this clear. Players who take the axe get a good weapon. Players who spare Barbas get a mask that makes wishes come true. The math is not subtle. 492. There is a shrine of Periite, reachable by a mountain path in the Reach. Approaching it, a sickly yellow haze emanates from it. The worshippers gathered there are sick. They appear frozen. They are alive, trapped in a vision of Periite's realm. One of them can communicate with you. He describes the vision. It sounds unpleasant. 493. Periite is considered one of the weaker Daedric princes in terms of direct power, but he governs something vast, the spread of disease throughout the world, which means he is involved in the lives of every mortal, whether they know it or not. The shrine in the Reach is small. Its influence is not. 494. There is a location called Knife Point Ridge, south of Markarth, that is used as a base by bandits. A specific quest sends you there for a different reason. The bandits, when cleared, stay cleared. The ridge then becomes an empty camp. It doesn't become anything else. The game doesn't repopulate it. The ridge is left quiet. 495. There is a mine in Dawnstar called Ironbreaker Mine. The owner, Lagelf, has a complicated relationship with the mine owner across town, Beitild. They are separated and running competing mines. Their feud is low stakes in the scale of Skyrim's events, and completely real in the scale of Dawnstar's community. Both characters can end up as Dark Brotherhood targets, for different reasons. 496. There is a man named Tyrannus who is investigating an abandoned house in Markarth in connection with Molag Bal's quest. He is a vigilant of Stendar, a group that hunts undead, and Daedra. He should be experienced with dangerous situations. The house overcomes him anyway. His last moments are confused and frightened. The house chose him because he was closest and because Molag Bal needed someone to begin the ritual. 497. The vigilance of Stendar operates across Skyrim, hunting vampires, Daedra worshippers, and the undead. They have a hall in the Pale. They are earnest and dedicated. The Dawn Guard DLC begins with a vampire attack on their hall that leaves no survivors. The institution, built to fight supernatural threats, is destroyed early in the story about a supernatural threat. The sequence is efficient. 498. There is a wandering priest of each of the 9 divines in Skyrim. They travel between shrines and settlements. Speaking to them can result in blessings. Each one has a specific personality. Some are serene, some are intense, some are simply walking. They move through the world performing their faith and asking nothing of the player. 499. Marimal, the priest of Mara in Riften, is the person through whom you can get married in the game. He explains the marriage ceremony and performs it at the Temple of Mara. He is professional about this. He seems to take weddings seriously as sacraments, even when the wedding involves someone who has spent the week murdering bandits. Marriage in Skyrim is available to any combination of characters, with appropriate dialogue unlocked. The selection of possible spouses spans race, class, and faction. The universality of the marriage system within the game's mechanical vocabulary is noted, without the game commenting on it. 501. There is a house in Riften you can buy called Honeyside. It is pleasant. It has a porch overlooking the lake. The location, in a corrupt city with a guard problem, means the pleasant house exists within an unpleasant civic situation. The house is nice. The neighborhood is complicated. Proud Spire Manor, in Solitude, is the most expensive, purchasable home in the game. It is in the capital city. It has a view of the sea. The price is commensurate. Owning it requires the means and the desire to be a property owner in the most politically significant city in Skyrim. Most players who buy it do so because they can, not because they need it. 503. The Archmage's quarters in the College of Winterhold become available after completing the college questline. The quarters are at the top of the college's central tower. The view from them encompasses the sea, the snow, the ruins of Old Winterhold. The position is both literal and symbolic. Being at the top of the college means being above the rest of the city, which has never fully trusted the college. 504. There is a cart near Helgen at the very beginning of the game that the player arrives in. When you return to Helgen later, the cart is still there, burned. The cart that carried you to your near execution remains as an artifact of that day. 505. There are Imperial soldiers' bodies in Helgen from the dragon attack. Some of them are named. The names are in the game's data. The named soldiers were doing their jobs when the dragon came. They are not quest relevant, they are just people who were there. 506. The dragon Alduin appears and disappears in Helgen in a sequence that the game engineers to be overwhelming. The sound design of the attack, the roar, the fire, the screaming, is louder and more layered than anything in the first minutes of the game. The contrast is intentional. The opening was quiet. The dragon is not. 507. Hadvar says, during the Helgen escape, "I can't believe it. A real dragon." This line is small but appropriate. Within the fiction, dragons have not been seen for centuries. The disbelief in his voice is not performative. Everyone in Helgen is experiencing something they have no framework for. 508. Ralof says something similar on his path. Both soldiers are experienced fighters who are seeing something new. The dragon is not categorizable in terms of what they know. They adapt quickly because survival requires it, but the line registers their disorientation. 509. The tutorial of Skyrim teaches the player to sprint, to pick locks, to use potions, and to navigate menus through necessity, rather than instruction screens. Each skill is taught by requiring it in a specific moment. The game assumes you will figure it out when you need it. This approach trusts the player in a specific way. There is a book called The Art of War Magic that describes offensive spell theory. It uses the language of military tactics applied to spellcasting. It was written by a Telvanni wizard, who was also a soldier, and the combination of perspectives produces a text that is practical in an unusual way. 511. The spell schools in Skyrim: destruction, conjuration, illusion, alteration, restoration, Each have master-level spells that require quests to unlock. The quests are not simple fetch quests. Each one tests mastery of the school in a way that the master trainer deems sufficient. The evaluation criteria are different for each school, which reflects the school's different philosophies. 512. The Illusion School's Master Quest requires you to cast illusion spells on specific targets across Skyrim, demonstrating range and application. It is almost entirely non-violent. You cast spells and walk away. The mastery is in the doing without confrontation, which is the core philosophy of illusion magic. 513. The Conjuration School's Master Quest involves summoning specific creatures in specific locations. The locations are difficult. The creatures are powerful. The quest communicates that advanced conjuration is not simply about having better creatures, it is about maintaining them under pressure. The Destruction School's Master Quest is essentially a damage threshold. You must deal enough destruction damage in a period of time. This is the most mechanical of the Master Quests, but the threshold ensures you have genuinely been using the school, not simply carrying a fire spell for emergencies. 515. There is a Master of the Restoration School named Colette Marance at the college, who is aware that Restoration is considered the least impressive school by most mages. She is defensive about this. She makes a case for its importance that is entirely correct. The social hierarchy of the spell schools within the college's culture is a small reflection of how practitioners of different arts are valued in any institution. 516. There is a Master of the Alteration School named Tolfdir, the same kindly teacher mentioned earlier. He is the alteration expert and the general magic teacher. His investment in alteration specifically comes through in how he talks about it. Not as a defensive tool, but as a philosophy of engagement with the world. 517. There are unique spell tomes in the game for spells not available through merchants or teachers. Some are in dungeons, some are in the possession of specific enemies, some are rewards for specific quests. The distribution of knowledge in Skyrim is deliberately uneven, which reflects a world where knowledge is power and power is hoarded. 518. The Dragonborn's ability to absorb dragon souls and use them to unlock shouts is called the talent of the voice, specifically the gift of the gods. Non-Dragonborn characters can learn the Thu'um. The Greybeards prove this, but they cannot absorb souls and must spend years on each word. The Dragonborn's advantage is not the ability to learn, but the rate of it. The talent is one of scale. 519. The shout system has a cooldown expressed as an hourglass. The cooldown decreases as shout mastery increases. At the highest mastery, some shouts have almost no cooldown. The mechanical progression of shout power maps to the law of mastery through practice. The player learns the Thu'um the way a non-Dragonborn would, just faster. 520. There are words of power that are not attached to shouts. They exist in the game's data, but have no active function accessible to the player. Whether these are cut content, decorative elements, or future content is unclear. They are simply there, found by data miners. 521. There are also shouts in the game's books that are described but not available to the player. Jürgen Windkohler's shout that silenced a storm. A shout used to cause earthquakes. These are historical descriptions of things the player cannot do. The world's magic is larger than the player's access to it. 522. There is a staff called the Staff of Heistoki that has a backstory in the lore. Heistoki was a wizard who imprisoned his own soul in the staff for reasons the texts suggest were complex. The staff itself is powerful. The wizard in the staff is presumably still there. The game does not include him as a speaking character. 523. There is a place near Riften called Snowshod Farm. The Snowshod family is a Stormcloak-aligned family in Riften. Their farm is their economic base. Their politics are their identity. The farm and the faction are inseparable for them, which is true of many families in Skyrim. Politics is not abstract. 524. There is a location called Darkwater Crossing, where a group of Argonians works an amber mine. When you first find it, There are soldiers nearby. This is the same Imperial patrol that captures Ulfric and the player at the start of the game, on the alternate path. The beginning of the story and a mining camp are in the same place. Darkwater Crossing is where the prologue happens if you chose a different route. 525. There is a man named Brond in Darkwater Crossing who bullies an Argonian named Derkethus. Derkethus can be rescued from a cave nearby where bandits have captured him. When freed, he returns to Darkwater Crossing, to Brond. The situation he returns to is the same situation he left. He doesn't explain why he goes back. He simply does. 526. There are several characters in Skyrim who are trapped in situations that their circumstances make difficult to leave. The game does not always provide an exit for them. Some storylines simply describe a reality without offering a resolution. This is a feature of the world's design, not an oversight. 527. There is an elf in Whiterun's tavern named Mikhail the Bard. He is a mediocre bard with a high opinion of himself. A woman named Carlotta has complained about his attention. He refuses to take her disinterest seriously. A quest asks you to convince him to stop. You can do this through persuasion or through violence. Either works. He adjusts his behavior based on clear signals, apparently. Isolde, mentioned earlier, can be married by the player. If married, she talks about her plans for the Bannered Mare. She has specific ideas. She is working towards something concrete, and she has told you about it. The future she imagines includes a business. 529. There is a woman named Helga in Riften who runs the bunkhouse. She is a devotee of Dibella, the goddess of love, in a way that her followers would consider orthodox, and her neighbors find unusual. She has a list. There is a quest that involves this list. The quest is handled with a certain matter-of-factness. 530. Sibby Blackbriar is Maven's grandson, imprisoned in Riften for crimes. He is arrogant in the way of people who have always had consequences managed for them. Being in prison has not changed his manner. He seems to expect this to resolve itself, and based on his family's history, he is probably right. 531. There is a Dunmer named Romlin Dreth in Riften, who has a smuggling operation connected to the Thieves' Guild and to Blackbriar Meadery. He is delivering product through an unapproved channel. He is cheerful about this. He does not appear to have considered the specific risks carefully. 532. There is an alchemy shop in Whiterun called Arcadia's Cauldron, run by Arcadia, a woman who is knowledgeable about ingredients and has a personality that is helpful without being warm. She does her job. She is good at it. She does not appear to need the player's visit to be anything other than a transaction. 533. Danica Purespring, the healer at the Temple of Kinnereth in Whiterun, heals injuries. She will heal the player for a cost. She will also complain, in dialogue, that she is the only healer for a large area, and that injured soldiers are being brought to her from the Civil War in increasing numbers. She is doing too much, and she knows it. 534. There is a Companions member named Ayla who gives Radiant companion quests after the main quest line. The quests are simple. She gives them efficiently. She is still hunting, still working, still moving. The conclusion of the main Companions quest did not slow her down. 535. Eorland Greymane will, after the Companions quest line, simply resume his work at the Skyforge. He forges. The events of the quest line, from his perspective, are complete. The forge still needs tending. He tends it. 536. There is an orc named Gorbash the Iron Hand in Dushnik Yal, an orc stronghold, who has served in the Imperial army and wants to go adventuring. He is restless. The stronghold life is stable but constrained. He has seen more than most of the stronghold's inhabitants. He wants to see more still. 537. Borgak, the Steel Heart, another orc in a different stronghold, has been arranged to be married against her preference. She wants to leave but feels the obligation. She will join you as a follower if you pay her dowry, freeing her from the arrangement. She is practical about this. She does not dramatize it. She simply leaves. There are orc strongholds, where the chief has multiple wives. This is the social structure of the stronghold system. The women have lives within this structure that vary. Some are invested in it, some are resigned. Some, like Borgak, are looking for something else. 539. There is a Dunmer man named Mogrel in Raven Rock in the Dragonborn DLC who is a loan shark. He is threatening a man named Drovus Relvi, who cannot repay his debt. Mogrel is not subtle about his methods. He has an enforcer. The debt situation in a struggling colonial city is handled by someone like Mogrel, apparently, because no other structure exists to handle it. 540. Drovus Relvi, if freed from his debt, takes a position working for Neloth. The escape from the debt is exchanged for an equally eccentric situation. He doesn't seem to have considered this fully. He seems mostly relieved. 541. There is a wood elf hunter named Angie who lives alone in the mountains south of Falkreath. She is hiding from the law. She offers archery training. She is the best archer in the game in terms of trainer quality. She is isolated by choice and has built a life around that isolation. The archery training is, in a sense, something she offers in exchange for company she can control the terms of. 542. Angie's backstory involves killing 2 Imperial soldiers in Riften who killed her family while drunk. She fled to the mountains. She has been there since. The soldiers she killed were in the wrong. She is still hiding. The law does not distinguish between her situation and simple murder. 543. There is a ghost in Dukar's monument mentioned earlier. The field around the monument is quiet. The monument itself is simple. Dukar died protecting something. The monument says what? The ghost does not know. It is a monument to himself. There is a character named Quintus Navale in Windhelm who works at the White Phial, an alchemy shop. The owner, Norelian, is old and ill and obsessed with finding a legendary alchemical vessel called the White Phial. The shop is named for something its owner has not yet found. When you find the phial for him, he is dying. He lives long enough to hold it. 545. Norelian dies after receiving the White Phial. It is cracked and doesn't fully work. Quintus inherits the shop and can restore the phial if you help him. Norelian's life's work is completed posthumously by his apprentice. The restored phial is a reusable container for 1 dose of potion per day. It is practical rather than legendary. The legend was in the pursuit. 546. There is a quest involving a flute belonging to a bard's ghost in Hobbs Fall Cave. The ghost plays the flute badly, endlessly, because he hasn't finished the song. When you find his flute and return it symbolically by reading his notes, the ghost can rest. He was waiting for someone to understand what he was trying to do. 547. There is a lighthouse keeper's journal in Solitude Lighthouse. It describes the routine of keeping the light. The later entries note sounds from the nearby cave. The entries become shorter. The final entry is several days after the one before it. The journal is found without the keeper. 548. There is a dog named Vigilance for sale at the Markarth stables. He costs 500 gold. He has no backstory. He is simply a very expensive dog. The price suggests he is exceptional at something, though what is not specified. He behaves as other dog followers behave. 549. Miko, the dog at Miko's shack mentioned earlier, is free if you allow him to follow you. He is one of the most contextually rich companions in the game for having no dialogue. His waiting at his owner's deathbed and his decision to follow you instead communicates more than many voiced characters manage. 550. There is a character named Viarmo, the headmaster of the Bard's College in Solitude, who is interested in recovering a historical poem. He is a politician as much as an educator. He knows how to move things through the city's power structure. He approaches the burning of Olaf's effigy as a cultural institution that requires maintenance. He is correct. Cultural institutions do require maintenance. 551. There is a quest in the game called A Night to Remember, which involves the player waking up in Markarth with no memory of the previous night and a note from a Daedric prince. Tracing what happened involves travelling to multiple holds and speaking to people who encountered you. The player has no memory of the events. The NPCs do. The events are described as having been impressive. 552. Sanguine, the Daedric Prince of Debauchery, is behind the quest. He is jovial. He is one of the few Daedric princes who is not threatening in any direct way. He seems to have had a good time. He arranged the situation because it was amusing to him. His artifact is Sanguine's Rose, which summons a Dremora. He gives it to you as a memento. 553. There is a giant at Sleeping Tree Camp near Whiterun, who tends a strange tree with glowing sap. The sap, if collected, creates sleeping tree sap, a substance that acts like a powerful narcotic potion. The giant is cultivating a drug plant. He seems unaware that this is unusual. The Sleeping Tree Camp is perhaps named with this in mind. 554. There is an orc named Malakath Worshipper who wanders the wilderness of Skyrim. He is aggressive. He has rejected the civilization of the cities and the comfort of strongholds in favor of something starker. He is living the most extreme version of his faith, alone in the wilderness, fighting anything he encounters. He is not wrong that his god values strength. He has taken this to a specific conclusion. 555. There is a book called Daughter of the Neban, which is a short story about a woman who travels to a dangerous area and returns transformed. It is a coming-of-age story using the Elder Scrolls setting's geography as backdrop. It is one of several in-universe novels that treat the setting's locations as places people move through and grow in, rather than as locations for battles. 556. There is a small camp near Lake Ilinalta in Falkreath that is occupied by a group of necromancers. They are raising dead animals. The camp's location, near the lake where the companions sometimes camp after hunts, is not a coincidence in terms of resource availability. Dead animals from hunts are an ingredient for what the necromancers are doing. 557. Lake Ilinalta contains a sunken ruin called Ilinalta's Deep, a fort that sank into the lake long ago. Getting into it requires diving. The ruin is intact below the water. The furnishings are preserved. Someone lived there once, in a fort that now exists underwater, accessible only by holding your breath and navigating the ruins. 558. There is a character named Selvani Nethri in Sidna Mine who is not forsworn. She is a regular person who was imprisoned for a crime and is serving her sentence. Her presence in a mine full of forsworn is uncomfortable for her. Her crime is not specified. Her sentence is not described as unusual. She is simply there, with people she has nothing to do with, in a mine. 559. There is a man named Madran in Sidna Mine who has been there long enough to know all the other inmates' stories. He shares information. He is not a leader. He is the social connector who knows everyone and whom everyone knows. Every contained society has someone like this. 560. There are forsworn members in Sidna Mine who are ideologically committed, and others who are there because of proximity to the movement rather than belief. The variation in commitment within the prisoner population is realistic in a way that games don't always bother with. 561. There is a woman in Markarth named Lisbeth who runs the Arnleaf and Sons trading company. She is pragmatic and focused on business. Her shop handles imports and exports in a city that is already complicated to navigate. She manages this without apparent difficulty. There is a museum in Solitude called Radiant Raiment that is actually a clothing shop. The owner, Endari, is discouraging toward customers she finds unworthy of her merchandise. Her sister Tari, who works with her, is more accommodating but shares the assessment. They run a luxury business in the capital city. Their attitude reflects the position. 563. Terry offers to outfit the player in appropriate clothing for a meeting with the Jarl. The quest is brief. The clothing matters to her in a specific way. She believes appearance communicates status, and she is not wrong that it does. Her investment in this is professional and personal. There is an armor class called Fur Armor in Skyrim. That is the lowest quality available. It appears in the inventories of bandits with little resources and travelers in difficult conditions. The armor is contextually appropriate. People in extreme cold use what they can. The hierarchy of armor types corresponds roughly to the hierarchy of resources available to different characters. 565. Dragon armor is the logical endpoint of this hierarchy. The material is literally a dragon. To craft it, you need what remains of the most powerful creatures in the world. The progression from fur to dragon describes the Dragonborn's journey in material terms. There is an ancient Nord armor set that appears in Nordic tombs, worn by Draugr and placed in displays. It is distinct from standard armor in design. It has a specific aesthetic that marks it as pre-current. The presence of pre-current armor in the tombs reflects historical reality. These warriors were buried in what they wore when they died, which is not what anyone wears now. 567. There is a Nightingale armor set that can only be obtained by joining the Nightingales. The set is designed to look like the patron deity's aesthetic: dark, feathered, functional. It is one of the most recognizably designed armor sets in the game. It looks like what it is. The Archmage's robes, available after completing the college questline, are visually distinct from standard mage robes. They are dark blue with gold trim. They mark the wearer as the head of the institution. They are also practically useful. They enhance magic across all schools. The aesthetic and mechanical functions align. 569. There is a dungeon called Vachlok's Tomb on Solstheim in the Dragonborn DLC. Vachlok the Jailer was a dragon priest tasked with guarding a secret regarding Mirak's betrayal. He was given immortality through his duty. He is still there. He has been guarding a secret for thousands of years that by the time the Dragonborn arrives is no longer a secret. His function has been complete for a long time. He continues it anyway. 570. Varlok's existence is one of the saddest in the DLC. He was given an immortal purpose. The purpose became redundant. He continued, "He does not appear to know that the situation changed. He is a guardian without a secret, maintaining a vigil whose meaning ended centuries ago." 571. There is a word wall at the summit of the Scale Village's sacred mountain on Solstheim. The wall is there because the Skal's sacred space and the dragon language's wisdom are not as separate as they might appear. The Skal's Allmaker and the ancient Nord concept of Kine have overlapping domains. The wall at the summit of a sacred site is not coincidence. 572. There is a location on Solstheim called Glacial Cave that is simply a cave in a glacier. It has no quest. It has no unique enemies. It has a few ice items and the ambient sounds of deep ice. It is one of dozens of locations in the DLC and the base game that exist for the experience of being there rather than the completion of an objective. The last note in this video is not a secret or a hidden detail. It is simply this: Skyrim is large enough that no single playthrough sees all of it, and no single video lists all of it. The developers built a world that rewards looking, and then they built more of it than any reasonable person would look for. Somewhere in the game right now, there is probably a cheese wheel on a shelf you have not found, a note from someone whose story you haven't followed, a deer standing in a river you have never crossed. The world kept going, whether or not you were watching it. That is what makes it worth watching.